Lockie, there was some action-packed racing yesterday.
There certainly was. I know that the TA2 category was the personal favourite of yours. Big, loud, spectacular, and a record field of 30 cars here at Sydney Motorsport Park this weekend. Really good battle between Aaron Seaton, the current points leader, and also George Meadicke, his closest title rival, and Nathan Hurt, the young 17-year-old who has been one of the fastest drivers in TA2 over the last few rounds. Emily, I know that you were thinking about trying to get yourself behind the wheel of a TA2 car, but they certainly put on a good show, didn't they?
Yeah, they certainly did. The roar of the cars and their sound and the look of them, they're just superb.
TA2 is not the only category on the program here at the AMRS this weekend, though. We've also got the Mazda RX8 Cup here with a record field of 27 cars. There was lots of jostling for position in both of the races that they had yesterday, and a change in the championship lead as well, with Aaron Prosser moving ahead of Will Harris, who had a couple of dramas in yesterday's races. We saw a bit of a collision on the final lap yesterday.
Yeah, certainly did. And then his brother slowed down to allow him to pass first so that he could collect an extra 2 points. What's some brotherly love?
It's good to see, wasn't it? And good camaraderie in the RX8s as well. Formula 3, the Australian Formula 3 Championship cars are here. The big talking point in F3 is the performance from John Magro right throughout this season. He's now won 10 races in a row. He has the chance to make some Formula 3 history here at Sydney Motorsport Park today, because if he can chalk up another 2 wins, they will equal the all-time record for the most consecutive race wins in the Australian Formula 3 Championship. And the other news that we've got today is 2 50-minute races for the GT1 Australia cars. I know that one of your race engineers is actually helping out with the Mark cars this weekend. How's his weekend been going so far?
The weekend's been great. They did have a little bit of a mishap yesterday with a few of 2 teammates coming together, but everything seems to be sorted and they'll be back out today.
So looking forward to bringing you all of the action live on Glenline TV. Tune in right across the day for all of the action. Myself, Emily Duggan, and a couple of special guest commentators will be up in the box. It's coming to you live right here on Glenline TV.
Well, I've been doing a lot of motor racing for many years.
And we go straight into the racing here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Lockie Mansell in the commentary box. Stephen McLean, race number 3 of the weekend for the Mazda RX8 Cup. Aaron Prosser takes the early race lead. He was the race winner in races 1 and 2 yesterday. He also took the series lead, grabbing a 9-point advantage over Will Harris after yesterday's 2 races. He's made a nice start. He'll lead the field down into turn number 1 on this opening lap. And the man on screen at the moment in the number 7 car, Will Harris, was the driver who relinquished the points lead. Stephen McLean, a few dramas for Will Harris yesterday.
Yeah, Will had a little bit of altercation. It was very complex at turns. Second races. He missed the gear and Will managed to get into the back of him. And that was a bit of a strange one. He damaged the wiring behind his headlight. It actually shorted out. It shorted his ignition fuse, so he had no power and just had to roll home down the straight, just like he did on the last lap.
A few other interesting battles yesterday, including as we've actually got a red flag, so that was supposed to be a race start, but they've actually brought out the red flag, so it looks like we might have a delayed start situation here, so a bit of an interesting one. I wonder if there was an issue with the start lights or something which might have confused some of the drivers, but they're going to come back around and form back up on the grid once again, which is not a bad thing for us because it gives us a bit more of a chance to talk about some of the other news in the Mazda RX8 Cup that's happened so far this weekend. We touched on Will Harris, who was the points leader coming into this weekend, and the fact that he has now lost that series lead to Aaron Prosser. But one of the points that I do want to raise, Stephen, is the fact that we've got 5 rookies in the field this weekend, including your son Shannon McLean, who makes his series debut in the car that you raced in the opening 3 rounds.
Yes, Shannon's first race maybe this weekend. He's had a couple of problems in the first 2 races getting it off the line. He's still trying to learn how to start those things, not having had a practice start before. Times-wise, he's actually doing quite well. He qualified well in 7th, but realised that qualifying the car and driving the car and getting a time out of it's very, very different to racing the car. So, look, he'll get there, Lockie. It's a long-term thing for him. It's a very cutthroat class. They're very, very close together. When you've got cars that are all so controlled and so close on the track, it's very hard to get past. So if you give up positions at the start, it's hard to get them back. But mate, he'll get there. As you say, there's 4 other debutants in there, and there's a couple of them. Young Daniel Reynolds is right up at the front, same as Matt Chick. We've got a couple of very fast young fellas in the field this weekend, going along with the old fellas. So I think we've got Terry Lewis on the front row of the grid, who I raced against back in the late 80s and early 90s. So Terry's been around for a long time. There's an awful lot of experience on this grid.
Matt Chick was the standout performer for mine yesterday, one of the series rookies this weekend. It's his first race meeting since back in 2011 when he raced in the Commodore Cup National Series. So it's been a long time since he's been in a race car, but immediately he's come to grips with the Mazda RX-8. It's the car that's being run by the Matt Butters racing team out of Victoria, and Matt was immediately competitive. Qualified 7th, got up to 6th position in race number 1. And then in race number 2, he set the lap record on his way up to 3rd position. So I reckon Matt Chick might be one of the drivers who has a bit of pace to give a challenge to our front runners, as we do have the field reassembled. And this time we will go racing, and it's Terry Lewis who gets the jump on Aaron Prosser this time around. They'll go side by side into turn number 1. Aaron Prosser will have the preferred inside line, and Lachlan O'Hara from the second row of the grid squeezing up on the outside of Matt Chick as well. So a couple of changes in position. Prosser has managed to hold on to the lead as they head down into turn number 2. Lachlan O'Hara up the inside of Terry Lewis. Matt Chick gets relegated back to position 4. Jake Lauer, pretty handy start as well.
It was a great start by Terry Lewis. He got the jump on Prosser from the start there and led down into turn 1. The field's all pretty bunched up. Terry's holding out Lachlan at the moment. Matt Chick's making a dive and Lachlan down into 4.
A couple of other drivers looking for some late moves there at turn number 4. They're still running 2 and 3 wide as they head up into turn number 5. Matt Chick around the outside of Lachlan O'Hara manages to hold on to the position. Watch out for Will Harris coming through as well. His brother Brad Harris in the Rick Shaw Racing run car, very much involved in the thick of the action. He was fast yesterday too. All of these cars so evenly matched. It's competitive, it's tight, it's door-to-door racing. 3 wide down into Corporate Hill with Justin Barnes on the inside of Nick Dunkley.
We've got Will Harris trying to make a dive down into the hairpin on Jake Lauer. I'm not sure. We'll have a look how they come out there. Lauer still holds the position in front.
Paul Grant Mitchell getting the move done there on Justin Barnes as well. He got speared off to the side of the track in quite a scary incident in race 2 yesterday. Managed to fight his way back up to 12th position. He was pretty speedy yesterday, so he'll be looking to make up some more places. And for Will Harris in the number 7 car, one of our title contenders, he needs to gain as many spots as he can. He needs to stay within striking distance of Aaron Prosser to minimise the damage that Prosser was able to inflict on him in the title challenge. And Terry Lewis, he's very much a championship contender as well. We need to make mention of that. He chalked up a couple of second place finishes yesterday, and he's worked his way into a pretty handy points position as well.
Terry is so keen to do well in this championship. I was talking to him yesterday morning, and mathematically he's still a chance to win the championship. He's sitting in a solid 3rd place at the moment. It's a great result for Terry. He's been around for a long, long time, and he didn't race for about 20 years, and he's sort of fallen back into it and getting back on his feet now. It's great to see the mix that we've got from young to old. We've got some from young sort of 17, 18-year-old kids, and we've got guys like myself that are approaching 60. So it's a big spread. It's worth sort of mentioning this is our biggest field that we've had in those RX8 Cup. We've got 27 cars here this weekend, and it's a magnificent sight seeing them all out there on the grid.
It really has been a category that has catered for everyone since Rick Shaw and Phil Alexander and a couple of other people came up with the concept to get this category started a couple of years ago. I don't think they had any idea just how big and how diverse it would become in terms of the drivers that were competing. Like you say, it's been a starting point for a lot of drivers to get involved in motorsport, but it's also been a category where you've got some older, more experienced drivers who've been able to come back into racing.
Most definitely. I think the cost effectiveness of it is something that is bringing people back to it. Rick Shaw has done so much work behind the scenes to make sure that this category is cheap, it's affordable. and it's a long-term thing. Rick continues to work on the overall concept of the series. It's a credit to him, because without Rick, the series wouldn't be where it is at the moment.
We've got a good battle happening at the moment. Will Harris is starting to get impatient on the rear bumper of Jake Lau. There was almost a bump between the two cars. Daniel Reynolds is getting involved in the action as well, and in fact Reynolds is going to be very well placed here. No, he's not. He tries to send one down the inside at turn number 1, but he gets squeezed up on the ripple strip, loses the back of the car, and goes spearing off at high speed through the fastest corner on the racetrack. Daniel Reynolds pretty lucky to get away from that one, I think, without any more contact with other cars, but that's a high-speed lose for the number 22 S-Sport Mazda RX-8 driver.
That's a massive off in these cars. It's about 185, 190k turned into turn 1, so he's very, very lucky that that didn't make it out to the wall. Dribbling back onto the track in last position, but at least he's back on the track and he can see where he can go from there.
He was on the outside of Will Harris. There's more contacts. This time it's on the run up to turn number 5, and it involves Justin Barnes and also Will Harris involved in that one as well. But Daniel Reynolds, one of our series debutants this weekend, a driver with lots of experience in Formula V and some production car racing. And he's adapted pretty well to the RX-8, but that was a scary, scary moment for him at turn 1. Your son Shannon McLean on the screen there. He's in the thick of the action as well, Stephen.
He's getting up into the mix. He's sitting right in there behind Sammy Silvestro at the moment, trying to make a move. He's got Elliot Maloof around the outside of him in the hairpin. Yeah, Shannon's he's right in the mix there. We'll see what he can do.
Elliot Maloof getting forced wide, and that's going to allow Nandy Kiss, the former Dunlop Super 2 racer and V8 Ute racer, to grab a couple of spots on the run up into turn 16. Sam Silvestro, very experienced driver in production sports cars, and he's attacking the back of Ada Rhineway at the moment. His son Ben Silvestro in the category as well. We've seen that it's been a good category for fathers and sons to get involved. You and your son, Stephen, obviously Rick Shaw, his son Tom Shaw's now started racing, and also Sam and Ben Silvestro.
Yeah, all the young blokes are taking over from us old blokes. Makes us feel a little bit older, actually. We've got Paul Grant Mitchell on screen at the moment with Justin Barnes having a go at him. Gee, Paul Grant Mitchell's come quicker and quicker and quicker as the time's gone by over the last 12 months or so. Justin just got into the back of Paul and pushed him wide.
And we also saw Will Harris getting up the inside of Nick Dunkley.
We've got a big
pandemonium
turnaround
at turn number 2. And Shannon McLean's been involved in that one. I wonder if there's something on the road down there, because these cars spinning off left, right and centre between turns 2 and 3.
There's cars everywhere there. I'm not really sure. We sort of switched and Shannon was backwards on the track, so I'm not really sure what happened there.
There must be fluid or something on the track, because Daniel Reynolds has arrived and he's gone spearing straight ahead as well. Justin Barnes in the number 44 car is slowing, and he's trying to stay well off the racetrack up at turn number 4.
And you'll say Justin Barnes got into the back of Paul Grant Mitchell down into turn number 2, and I'd say he's possibly split an oil cooler, and there's oil on the track down there, which would explain why this car's going left, right and centre.
Officials will get the deterioration of adhesion flag out just to warn all of the other drivers that there might be some fluid on the racetrack down there. And it hasn't slowed Aaron Prosser down too much though, because he has reset the lap record, gets down to a 1 minute 49.6, which is a tenth of a second quicker than Matt Chick's best time from yesterday. And there is the car of Justin Barnes stopped on the exit of turn number 4. With that car in that position, that could actually trigger a safety car intervention. Yeah,
it's in a pretty bad position there. I'm not sure how many laps there are to go. They may leave him there and hold the yellows out. We'll see what they decide to do. We're getting a replay here to see what... Oh, that's Daniel Reynolds turning it around in number 1. Yeah, that is a definite big off, Lockie.
He was awkwardly positioned. Oh, we've got Terry Lewis, is that in the wall? It is at turn number 1. So he was battling, he was side by side with Matt Chick, but one of our championship contenders has had a heavy hit into the concrete wall on the exit of turn number 1. You can only imagine that he's lost the rear of the car on the exit of the corner, and he's fired back across to the inside. And if there wasn't already going to be a safety car for Justin Barnes, you'd have to say that there'll definitely be one now. A massive shunt for one of our championship challengers, and in fact the race is going to be red flagged.
That was a massive accident, a massive hit. Terry's car's got an awful lot of damage to the front of it. He'll find it very hard to get that fixed for this afternoon. I think you'll find that he's out for the rest of the weekend. As you say, we've got a red flag, so all the cars will be coming back in.
I hope Terry's okay. That was a fairly unforgiving whack into the concrete wall there. As always, the ever hard-working team of officials will be on the scene within seconds to make sure that the driver's okay. So all hell has broken loose in this third race of the weekend for the Mazda RX-8. There was some good battles happening up and down the pack, but then the incident for Justin Barnes, where that car lost some fluid at turn number 2, caused a whole lot of action down there, and now unfortunately Terry Lewis has come unstuck at turn number 1, and with that car out presumably for the rest of the day, that'll obviously be a massive blow to his championship chances.
We've got the officials talking to Terry through the window. He hasn't got out of the car yet, so hopefully Terry's doing okay in there. I think he's looking okay. They're just opening the door now.
We're about to get a replay to explain a bit more of what happened. What I can say is that I noticed, just as they came past our commentary position on the main straight here at Sydney Motorsport Park, that Matt Chick was having a run down the inside of Terry Lewis on the run into turn number 1. So we probably need to go back a bit further to see if there was any contact between the cars, or if, well, that sort of really only tells the end of the story, but you can see from the amount of dust on the outside that Terry Lewis has clearly run wide on the exit of turn number 1. It could be that he's overcorrected.
And come back across the track and head on into the inside wall. That's a very big impact there. It's a high-speed corner. I just hope that Terry's okay. It would appear that he's out of the car.
Can we go for a break? The officials will get down there and make sure that not only Terry's okay, but also that the track is in a safe condition for us to resume racing. We've got lots of racing to come here on Blendline TV throughout the rest of the day. It's an action-packed day coming your way. So this is race number 3 for the Mazda RX-8 Cup, but we've also got, this is an earlier replay which tells the story.
Lachlan O'Hara, I think it was Lachlan O'Hara in 4th position. I'm not really sure. Have to get another replay. We've got them coming down into 1.
Look to the top of the shot. So there's Aaron Prost. Matt Chick's already got the move done.
Yep.
Well, hard to say if there was actually contact between the two cars from that shot.
It's very hard. It was very close, but very hard to see from the shot that we've got on screen.
I'm not going to go casting any aspersions on Lachlan O'Hara. Matt Chick was well and truly clear. Was there contact, or was Lewis already a bit sideways as they exited the corner? That's the question that you have to ask.
Very hard to tell from that shot.
So red flag is out. Officials are down there retrieving Terry Lewis' car. And just to run you through what's coming up throughout the rest of the day here on Blendline TV, we'll have the first of our 50-minute GT1 Australia races coming up very shortly, as we see that Justin Barnes' car is being retrieved as well. Formula 3, they'll be on track for race number 2 over 14 laps. That's at 20 past 11, and we'll have the TA2 Muscle Cars out at 11:45. Looking forward to the thundering V8 TA2 cars, record field of them here at Sydney Motorsport Park this weekend. Then during the lunch break, we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to have a panel show. Myself, my co-commentator Emily Duggan, and a few drivers will analyse some of the action that we've seen this weekend. And then we'll resume after the lunch break with GT1 Australia race number 2, the 4th and final race of the weekend for Mazda RX-8 Cup, 4th and final race of the weekend for the TA2 Muscle Car Series, and then the final race for the Australian Formula 3 Championship to round out proceedings. So unfortunate circumstances, obviously, and the race being declared with 4 laps in the books. But the news is that it's another race victory for Aaron Prosser,
which puts Aaron a fair bit ahead of Will Harris. I think Will Harris will still be second in the championship, but Terry Lewis, who was running 3rd in the championship, is obviously going to find it very hard now after a DNF in that race, and I'd say he'd be out for the rest of the weekend with a lot of damage to his car after that accident coming out of turn 1. I'll get back down into the pits and have a look at it and be able to let Lockie know a little bit more later on.
Yeah, you never want to see anything like that. And the other thing to consider is that it is a fairly short turnaround, only 3 weeks before the final round of the Mazda RX-8 Cup, which will be held at Wakefield Park as part of our 5th round of the Australian Motor Racing Series. You got a copy, guys? So what we might do here on the live stream is we might grab a break here in commentary while our officials retrieve these stranded cars. GT1 Australia, race number 1, coming up very shortly.
Well, I've been doing a lot of motor racing for many years, and I've been involved in a few one-make series over those years and learned a little bit from them. So I decided that with the way motor racing was getting so expensive to do now, it's making it harder and harder for younger people to come in and have a go. And a lot of people do, like my son. So to pave the way for them, I thought we'd start RX8 Cup, have a formula where it's as cheap motor racing as possible, and from the ground up, grassroots, and then go from there. We've got some guys come out of go-karts who want a change of direction with what they're doing. But then we've got a lot of guys who probably haven't really done virtually any motorsport at all, and they've come in and they've seen us as a category that was cheap and easy and friendly, user-friendly, and just somewhere to start, a good platform. So race cars are pretty easy. They can build them at home, in the garage, by themselves. They don't need professional help to build these cars. We've designed the formula so that they can do that, so that makes it cheaper. You can buy a car that's built if you wish, or a second-hand car. And then getting a race license is pretty easy these days. There's a lot of car clubs that will assist you and guide you and give you direction as to what you've got to do. So once you've got a license and you've got a race car, it's just basically put your helmet on and get out there and start learning. And that's what people are doing. That's what my son's doing. He had no experience prior to this, nothing at all, no go-karting or anything like that. And he's done 3 race meetings now, and he's loving it, and he's learning every time he goes out in the car. He goes quicker and he learns more experiences, and it's working really well. Yeah, look, the RX8 basically is a ideal car to put on a racetrack and go and play racing with. They're a great formula. They're well balanced, they're well behaved, they're easy to drive, and they're really enjoyable. There's a lot of driver feedback. They're not the fastest car in the world, but they certainly go quick enough for the guys who just want to come in and learn at grassroots level. Okay, so the cars are as standard from the factory as what we can have them, other than safety items and some items for better reliability. And the cheaper we can keep it, the better. And when they're as standard as they are, that means cheap. So we don't change much at all. And the components that do get changed, it's all at a competitor price, and that price is deals we've done with suppliers. So it's surprisingly cheap to build a car, and then they're very economical to run in the way of consumables. They don't burn up their consumables. So you can go racing and do it cheaply. Really happy with that. And we've got more, probably another 10 cars getting built at the moment, I would say. So looking into next year, we're going to have really strong grids. The array of drivers is spread a little bit between some more experienced guys at the front who are a bit quicker, and then the new guys at the back and everything in between. But what we're finding is there's battles right through the whole pack, and that makes it exciting. So there's a little bit of something for everybody in RX8 Cup. No matter what level they're at with their motorsport, there's something there for them. Contact me through RX8 Cup. We've got a website, we've got a Facebook page. I run my business here in Sydney, Rickshaw Performance. We're building cars there, we're maintaining cars there, and I'm happy to spend as much time on a phone or face-to-face with someone talking about what they need to do. Otherwise, come to the track and see what the other competitors are doing. Walk around the pits, talk to them, because they love talking about their cars, ask the questions, and you'll find out what's involved. Look, we've got some suppliers. We haven't got a naming rights sponsor for RX8 Cup at the moment. We're looking for one, but we've got suppliers like Speedy Wheels, Serco Pads, MCA Suspension, Sequel give us some support, and there's a small list of others as well that are helping us make this happen. But mainly it's being funded by the competitors. But because it's such a cheap form of motorsport, they're able to do that. Some of them are getting their own sponsors, which is helping. But yeah, look, sponsorship always is going to help. But in today's day and age, it's very difficult to get sponsorship. And I wouldn't let that stop anybody from coming and joining or having a look at motorsport. Because when you do it at grassroots level, a lot of people can do it a lot easier than they think. And there's 27 blokes in this pit lane that are eager to help someone new. It's one big happy family.
Welcome back, everybody. Great to have your company here on Blendline TV right around the world for round number 4 on the Australian Motor Racing Series. And we've got the GT1 Australia cars coming out onto the circuit now for the first of their 50-minute races. A bit of a spin on the warm-up lap for Bradley Neal in one of the Mark 1 cars. Joining me in commentary for this race will be Emily Duggan. And Bradley Neal is a driver who you've actually raced wheels well with in the Kumho Super 3 series.
Yeah, certainly have. It's very strange to see that a car's spun on the warm-up lap. However, that is something that I have done before when it was in wet conditions back in the Excel days. But that's the thing, that's why they the GT1s have 2 warm-up laps because they're warming up their tyres and making sure that when they come into turn 1 or turn 2, that they're not going to spin off the track.
So they will have a couple of warm-up laps, so they'll line up on the grid behind the safety car, then they'll go off on their formation lap, and then we'll have a double file rolling start. So the situation with GT1 Australia is that we had qualifying yesterday, and it was Matt Stupas on the very last lap of the second qualifying session who punched out a 1 minute 30.2 lap time to grab pole position ahead of Nick Kelly in the industry clothing Audi R8. So it's all Audi R8s on the front row of the grid. Grid position number 3, John Morris, the Porsche 911 GT3R. And then in the first of the Mark II cars, it's Jeff Taunton, who's recently upgraded from a Mark I car into the newer Mark II model car. Adam Hargraves will go from position 5 in the second of the Mark II cars. Then it's Vince Moretti out of position number 6. First of the Mark I cars is Hadrian Morale. He's in 7th position on the grid ahead of John Goodacre. Brad Neal out of position number 9 on the grid. Then we go back to Tony Groves, Bailey Hall, Lachlan Harburg, and Jake Cavalieri, who had a few mechanical problems with his Mark I car yesterday, in 13th position. Rounding out the field, grid position number 14, Jason Busk. And we've actually got a bit of drama here just as some cars launch off the grid. So with Jason Busk, a bit of an incident for him yesterday at turn number 1. Turned out that he had a broken right rear control arm, and that saw his car getting pitched into the wall on the approach to turn number 1. They were trying to get that car fixed overnight. Now, one of the interesting things with the GT1 races is that we do have compulsory pit stops for every car in the field, and the cars that qualify towards the front have to spend longer in their pit lane during a compulsory pit stop. So the pole-sitting car of Matt Stupas will be stationary in its pit bay for 80 seconds, and then it goes down in increments the further you are down the grid. So, Emily, when the compulsory pit stop window opens at 20 minutes into the race, we're going to have this situation where the order gets shuffled up because the faster cars will have to stop for longer. One of the other things to watch out for as well is if we do have an incident that requires recovery, there's no safety cars in GT1 Australia.
Oh wow, so what happens if the safety car's needed?
So if there's an incident where the officials need to go out and recover a stranded car, we go to a code at 60 situation. So everybody slows down to 60 kilometres an hour, or it's actually code 40 in GT1. So they put their pit lane speed limiters on, slow down to 40 kilometres an hour. Everybody maintains their margins relative to everybody else. So you don't get the field bunching up like what you would have under safety car conditions.
So you can't really take an advantage of a safety car, can you then?
Correct, and again, that's because we have the handicap pit stop situation. It's to make sure that the drivers who do have to stop for longer don't then get an advantage because the field is bunched up by having a safety car.
Yeah, wow. Very different, but I think that I like it.
So getting ourselves ready for a double file rolling start. GT1 Australia, first of our 50-minute races set to get underway here at Sydney Motorsport Park. It's all Audis on the front row. Matt Stupas, one of just 3 drivers in the field who's competed in every round of the GT1 Australia Series since it kicked off last year. He's on pole position. He was runner-up in the championship behind Jake Cavalieri in 2018. Lights out and away we go for the rolling start. Good start for Matt Stupas. John Morris having a sneaking look up the inside of Nick Kelly, and that actually cost Morris some momentum. But it's allowed Jeff Taunton in the Mark II car to sweep around the outside and move up into position number 3. Morris attacking under brakes, and a lock up as well from Nick Kelly as he looks down the inside of the race leader, Matt Stupas, and running very wide there, Jeff Taunton. He will give away that position to John Morris up at turn number 3. So a nice tidy start for all of the cars in the field. It really is Australia versus the rest of the world this weekend in the GT1 Australia category. You've got all of the exotic GT cars racing wheels well with the Australian side of built Mark I and Mark II cars, which are built in Queensland out of Ryan McLeod's Racer Industries headquarters. And Emily, Mark Robertson, who's been your race engineer in Toyota 86 and in Super 3, is down working on the Mark I cars this weekend. What's his feedback been so far this weekend?
Yeah, he absolutely loves the marked cars. He thinks that they're great. It's marked cars. It's always something that I actually want to have a go in and see what I can do. 6 hour, they're great in. They're just cars that are built for the racetrack, and they just last so long. They're going over the Nürburgring and the tracks over in America and Europe, and they just go 24 hours. They can go all day and all night.
It's because they're over-engineered and under-stressed, so they are fantastic endurance cars. They've proven to be very popular here in Australia as well. And the Mark II cars, we saw when Anton De Pasquale was let off the leash at the Bathurst 12 hour in qualifying earlier this year, got down to a 2-minute 4-lap time around Mount Panorama, so they're seriously quick cars as well.
Yeah, they certainly are. That's a quick time around Bathurst.
Wide moment at turn number 1 for Tony Groves in the Mark I Mazda 3. And he will lose the position as a result of that little off-track excursion. Matt Stupas, your race leader after the first lap, ahead of Nick Kelly. And it's John Morris, Jeff Taunton, back to Adam Hargraves. Jake Camilleri's had a really good start. He's come up from 13th on the grid, already up to position 6. So an absolute fly for Jake Camilleri. Back to John Goodacre, Vince Marisi. Young Bailey Hall, the 16-year-old who's on debut in GT1 Australia this weekend in 9th. And it's Tony Groves ahead of Adrian Morale. So back to Brad Neal and Lachlan Harberg, and unfortunately after that damage at turn 1 yesterday, Jason Busker's not taken the start this morning.
It's great to see Camilleri get back up there from, I think you said 13th to 6th.
Yep.
I was speaking to him yesterday in the interview, and he's just had such hard luck throughout this whole season, especially coming off the back of winning it last season. So it's good to see that he's fighting his way up there, and hopefully he puts in a good result with no dramas and good luck for the rest of the race.
He's had a few weird incidents this year, Jake Camilleri, including a rollover at the first round at Bathurst where GT1 supported the Bathurst 6 hour, where he got tangled up with another car coming into the pits, and I think because the car that he crashed into was a Lotus obviously being quite a low car, the marked car basically tripped over and ended up rolling over.
It's a very weird scenario that was, I think, Lockie. I think a lot of people have a few things to say about that one.
Good to see Jake Camilleri back out here this weekend, and the good news for Jake Camilleri is because he qualified a bit further down the order in the number 97 car, he only has to stop in his pit bay for 15 seconds during his compulsory pit stop, and that's a lot shorter than a lot of the other cars that he will be racing against. So again, the positions are what they are at the moment, but it's all going to shuffle around once the pit stop opens and people dive in to start taking their compulsory stops.
So Lockie, explain to me about this handicap pit stop. What's stopping a driver from then sandbagging your qualifying and just qualifying a little bit down the track?
I love it. You're always thinking, you've got the racing driver's mentality is how do I best play the rules to make sure that I get the advantage. So
strategy is everything, especially in these enduros.
So what happens is championship points get awarded for qualifying.
Oh, wow.
So you do have to qualify well, otherwise you miss out on getting points. So that's the way
how many of those, what's the point structure for qualifying compared to a race?
So we had 2 qualifying sessions yesterday, and each one of those sessions was worth 50 points. So if you top both sessions, as Matt Stupas did yesterday, you end up with 100 points, and that's the same number of points as that what you get for a race win.
So I get 100 points for a race win.
Yep.
And I get 50 points for qualifying.
For both sessions, so you can get
sessions.
100 points for qualifying as well.
I think that could be an opportunity for sandbagging. If I'm going to get 100 points for a race win, I mean, I'm not a sandbagger, but just thinking of the point system, maybe 13th, isn't that?
But also,
that
you're a
strategy?
race driver, aren't you? And isn't
Correct.
that you want to go out there and go as fast as you can?
Correct, and I want to win every single race that I go in. So I don't think that anyone could come over to the radio and say, Emily, just slow it down a little bit. I think I'd have a few different words to say back.
I think you would as well. So The bottom line is this: Matt Stupas leads the race. He's going to have to stop for 80 seconds, so he's got a very long compulsory pit stop time. Nick Kelly in second position. His stop is 5 seconds shorter. So if he can stay within 5 seconds of Matt Stupas in this opening stint, he should jump ahead of Matt Stupas when they come in for the pit stops. The third place car of John Morris, shorter again, 65 seconds. So that's 15 seconds shorter than the stop for Matt Stupas, and 10 seconds shorter than the stop for Nick Kelly. So you can see what's going to happen when the pit stop cycle starts. It's all going to shuffle around, and you're going to get a completely different race order to what we've got at the moment. Good battle on screen happening between Brad Neal and Tony Groves. Tony Groves, a driver who formerly raced in improved production cars down in Victoria, actually owns the Mornington Mazda dealer down on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria as well, hence the reason he's behind the wheel of one of the Mazda 3-bodied Mark cars. And Brad Neal coming off a bit of a high as well, because last weekend at Sandown he wrapped up the Kumo Cup class in the Super 3 series.
He certainly did. Very impressed and very happy for him to wrap up that series, especially coming down to the last race, as did the actual championship as well.
Indeed, and Brad Neal jumping into the Mark car this weekend. Not too dissimilar in terms of driving styles, I wouldn't think, between the rear-wheel drive Super 3 V8 supercar and the Mark car. They're both rear-wheel drive cars, they're both V8s.
Well, maybe if he lets me have a go of one, then I can tell you exactly what the differences are. Maybe that's how I spin it to him.
You've been trying to talk your way into every single race car in the pits this weekend, I reckon. I
wouldn't be a racer if I wasn't.
So Matt Stupas still leading, but Nick Kelly staying exactly where he needs to, within 9/10 of a second of Matt Stupas at the moment, and John Morris not too far away either. In fact, the top 5 cars in the race, there's only an 8-second spread from first down to 5th. And in fact, it's only 9.5 back to Vince Moretti in 6th position. So the pit stop shuffle is going to be very interesting. We've still got about 9.5 minutes until the compulsory pit stop window opens, and you can see that Matt Stupas is having to start driving defensive lines. He moves it to the inside of the circuit just to cover off the attack from Nick Kelly on the run down into turn number 2. One of the things with the GT3 spec cars is with all of that aero downforce, they are able to carry a lot of mid-corner speed, particularly through turn number 1 and the other high-speed constant radius corners that we have here at Sydney Motorsport Park. I know, Emily, that you haven't actually driven race cars that have got a whole lot of aero, but the faster you go, the more effective it is. So you can actually carry more corner speed in many cases than what you first think is possible.
I cannot wait till I have the opportunity to explain more about that and the feeling of what it's like to go through a corner really fast and know that the downforce has just got you covered.
A lot of the GT3 cars have driver aids like traction control as well, which you can vary the adjustments depending on the weather conditions and the drivability. What you have to remember as well, Emily, is that a lot of the GT3 spec cars have been designed with both professional and amateur drivers in mind. So, are
you commentating because I gave you that funny look that I don't think I'd be using the traction control and all that stuff?
You'd turn it down?
100%. You're not. You're racing these cars and you're going that fast. You need to have the ability to be able to feel what's going to happen. Although, in saying that, if something was to happen, I don't think I'd have the money to fix it. So maybe I would turn it on.
I think the biggest thing is for the less experienced or the amateur drivers, it provides a bit of a safety net for them more than anything. Whereas if you've got the more experienced pro driver, we've got Jeff Taunton off the road, that's at turn number 1. And the bonnet has parted company with that car, so something weird's gone on here with Jeff Taunton. And with that car in that position, that could actually trigger a code 40 situation, because that's in a very fast part of the racetrack off on the side of the road there at turn 1. Jeff Taunton's actually managed to get the car moving again. There is the bonnet. So I wonder if that's just gone flying off.
And it's very strange that it's gone flying off after doing a couple of laps. If it wasn't pinned down properly, I feel like that should have come off in the first 2 laps, not a couple of laps in.
That's the second incident that we've had so far this weekend where a bonnet's gone flying up on a car. One of the other categories yesterday as well, a driver had their windscreen smashed when the bonnet went flying up. As we see that Jeff Taunton's just waiting for a bit of clear space, but he has managed to get back onto the racetrack. And we do now have
Oh no,
a
code 40.
code 40 by the looks of things, because everybody on the racetrack has slowed down. Lachlan Hardberg just coming past our commentary position at the moment. And the good thing about a code 40 is that as soon as the incident's cleared, you can resume racing straight away. So back underway, and the race will continue on at full unabated speed. You don't have to wait until you get to the end of the lap for a safety car to pull off. As soon as the officials are happy that the track's clear, you can go racing immediately.
Yeah, I think I like this. This is pretty cool. A bit skeptical to begin with, but I feel like that actually works really, really well.
So
I wonder how they're going to get that bonnet.
They'll probably just wait till after the race. I don't think it's actually on the race track or the racing line, so they could probably just leave it there until we get to the end of the race, as we see our race leaders putting a lap on the car of Lachlan Hardberg. And there is Jeff Taunton's bonnetless Mark II car limping back to the pits. And unfortunately, that will be his race done by the looks of it. That's a shame, because he was running in 4th position at the time.
He won't continue without a bonnet?
Well, it leaves all of the mechanical components a bit exposed, doesn't it?
It certainly does. A little bit of more airflow coming in to cool everything down.
I wouldn't have thought mechanically it would have been the best thing for the car to continue with no bonnet.
I don't think so. It'll be interesting to see if maybe they've got a spare and they put that on and they get him back out again.
So not too long until the compulsory pit stop window opens, so we'll start to see pit stop shuffle playing out. Nick Kelly right on the tail of Matt Stupas, but if you're Nick Kelly, do you actually bother trying to put a passing manoeuvre on Matt Stupas? Or, seeing as you know that you've got a 5 second short of pit stop, do you just wait for the pit stops to play out, knowing that you're probably going to leapfrog him anyway?
I would put a move on him. If the opportunity is there, if the door is left wide open, I'm going to take that move.
One of the other things as well with these GT cars, particularly in a track like Sydney Motorsport Park, where you've got lots of fast corners, and you've got that aero effects that we were talking about before, can be difficult for these GT cars to follow each other too closely, because when you come up behind another car, you get exposed to the turbulent air, and it actually disturbs the airflow around the car and makes you lose a bit of front head stability, and the car starts understeering. We see it particularly in categories like Formula One, where the cars are very heavily reliant on aero, but we see it a bit in this as well. And I saw they were just having a look at Jeff Taunton's car as he came into the pits. Did you spot anything obvious other than the fact that the bonnet was missing?
That was the only thing that I spotted. That was very different about that car. It actually looks quite cool. As he was driving past, you could see everything that's in there. So, interesting look he's sporting. Now, Lockie, I wanted to ask, the pit stop window is about to open. What would be your strategy? Are you going to come in straight away? Are you going to wait?
So,
especially if you were Nick Kelly.
If you're Nick Kelly in 2nd position, you do the opposite of what Matt Stupas does, I think. So if Matt Stupas pits early, you stay out. If he decides to pit late, you probably pit early and try and undercut him. What you're aiming for is to get back out onto the track with clear track. You don't want to come out in traffic.
How are you going to know what the other car's going to do? If he decides to... Okay, if you were the first car, what would you then do? What would your strategy be?
So if you're in Matt Stupas' position, you're leading the race, but you've got a car behind that's putting pressure on. I reckon you probably stay out would be my strategy. You pit towards the end of the pit window. And of course, there'll be a whole lot of engineers down there working on these cars who have a whole lot more intelligence than us humble commentators, and we know that not necessarily so much in this category, but they do have quite sophisticated software that will be able to tell you exactly where you will drop back onto the racetrack in relation to other cars. And that's how the teams come up with strategies to make sure that they get clear track. And the Melbourne Performance Centre team that run the car of Matt Stupas, Troy Russell and his crew down there, they've got a whole assortment of very well-credentialed engineers, including Eric Pender, who was actually the V8 Supercar Championship winning engineer with Garth Tander back in 2007. He's now part of the Melbourne Performance Centre organisation. Very intelligent, very switched on, and certainly knows the ins and outs of planning race strategy.
I would put my 2 cents on you for strategy. I think that you had something to do with my strategy for my Enduro XL win.
And also 24 hours of lemons.
Correct.
As well.
Maybe, have you ever thought about quitting commentary and being a strategist? I don't know how you would say that.
To being a race strategist
Yes, that's
slash
odd.
engineer, I'd probably make more money that way.
Wouldn't we all?
So pit window is about 60 seconds away from opening, and the top runners have just spread out a little bit since the demise of the Jeff Taunton car with that bonnet incident. The top 3 cars are all still fairly close together, but 4th and 5th position, Vince Marehe and Adam Hargraves have just fallen away a bit. However, they do still have shorter pit stop times. The pit stop time for Adam Hargraves in 5th position is only 40 seconds, so he's going to be stationary in the pits for 40 seconds less time than Matt Stupas. Vince Marehe's pit stop time is 35 seconds, so again, another competitor who has a fairly short pit stop. And then Jake Camilleri, who's sitting there in 6th position and is 25.9 seconds off the outright lead of the race. He's only going to be stopped for 15 seconds. So that is more than a minute less time in the pits that he's going to spend compared to Matt Stupas. And we've got problems, unfortunately, for Brad Neal in the number 94 Mark car. That car's pulling into retirement at the back of the pits at turn number 4.
Yeah, that's a shame to see him out. I wonder what's happened with him. We haven't seen anything on track go wrong, so it'll be interesting to see.
I have to say, it does surprise me a bit, some of these mechanical problems to some of these Mark cars. Normally they're quite bulletproof. We've seen, as you were mentioning before, just how reliable they are in really long distance 24-hour endurance races all around the world. So the compulsory pit stop window is now open, so this is where we start to see the strategies play out. And incidentally, Jeff Taunton is back out.
Yep. Who needs a bonnet? Not him.
What he loses in aerodynamics by not having the bonnet, he might gain in having some really efficient engine cooling.
Exactly, see? Win-win.
There it is.
It's quite, it looks cool on camera, I think. At least it gives the spectators a really good view of what's actually happening underneath.
Now, he will still have to come back in for another pit stop as well, because that first pit stop wasn't taken during the compulsory pit stop window.
So it doesn't count.
No.
What's the time that he has to stop for in the pit stop?
So Jeff Taunton's pit stop time, car number 95, he will be stopped for 60 seconds. So because he qualified quite well, it is quite a long pit stop as we do start to see our pit strategy unfolding. Our race leader, Matt Stupas, boxes in the number 23 car. So that's the first one of our key runners to jump into the pits. And this is going to seem like an absolute eternity, just sitting there for 80 seconds, watching your car control and standing there with the stopwatch counting down.
Wow, yeah, that's not what you want to be doing. But I think this pit stop handicap is quite cool, and see how it will work in the strategies. It'll be interesting to see how Nick Kelly reacts. Does he stay out, like what you said, and waits a little bit longer, or does he come in? Who knows?
And you'll notice that with that pit stop, there's nothing happening other than the car controller standing there with the stopwatch, and that's because you're not actually allowed to work on the car during the pit stop in GT1 Australia.
So you literally have to just sit in the car for 80 seconds.
Correct.
And no one touches it. Wow.
Lachlan Harburg comes in the Porsche 997 GT3 car as well. And Nick Kelly now leads the race.
I wonder if he's ordered a coffee. I reckon in 80 seconds you could order a small piccolo and drink it.
Short black.
A short black, or maybe some chips or some KFC wings.
Don't want to affect the power to weight ratio too much though. Lachlan Harburg back on his way. He had a very, very short compulsory pit stop. In fact, car number 90, Lachlan Harburg, didn't actually even have to be stationary for any specified amount of time. It was just a stop-go in his pit bay. So
just waves
in,
past.
stop, go. So Nick Kelly has stayed out for the time being. They do
And Matt's back out now. He's served his 80 seconds and he's back out on the racetrack.
So Matt Stupas rejoins the race in position 10, and he will be a good lap and a half behind Nick Kelly at this stage. It'll take a bit of time for our timing system to update just to give us corrected margins between all of the different cars.
So if you timed what the pit lane, so coming in from pit lane with the 80 seconds and then to pit exit, what's the whole time?
That's a good question. So the transit time for pit lane here at Sydney Motorsport Park is 30 seconds. So that's how long it takes you to get from pit entry to pit exit at 40 kilometres an hour. So when you think about it, 80 seconds or a minute and 20 seconds plus another 30 seconds, it basically means you're going to spend the total amount of time in the pits of a minute and 50 seconds, so almost 2 minutes, which equates to well over a lap and a half, yeah, in one of these cars. So we just saw Bailey Hall coming down pit lane for his stop in the number 28 car. That was just a stop go as well, and we've got some more cars coming in as well. John Morris comes in the Porsche 911 GT3R, and we've got Vince Marisi in the...
Is that Nick Kelly?
And also Adam Hargraves in the second of the Mark II cars. Adam
the
Hargraves,
one that has his bonnet on.
Yeah, the one that does still have all of his bodywork attached. And Adam Hargraves has been getting some driver coaching this season from Daniel Gillison. Now, I'm not sure if you've heard too much about Daniel Gillison, Emily, but he used to race in the Dunlop Super 2 series for Greg Murphy Racing. He was actually a podium finisher in that series back in 2011.
Oh, wow. I think it's so great that a lot of drivers are getting driver coaching and mentoring from other drivers. It's really good to see that these drivers that have competed at that top level sharing their experience with younger drivers.
Here you go. Here's another opportunity, Em, for you to have a good look under the bonnet. Actually, you're not looking under the bonnet because it's missing, but Jeff Taunton back in the pits for what will be his official compulsory pit stop. Tony Groves comes in. So pit lane, a hive of activity at the moment. We've actually got 5 cars in the pits. Nick Kelly, does he choose to come in this time around, or is he going to stay out for another lap? He's going to keep going, making the most of the clear track while he has it.
Do you reckon he's heard your strategy and said, yep, I'm going with Lockie's strategy?
He's doing the opposite of what Matt Stupas did.
That's it.
However, he will have to pit within the next 3.5 minutes, so he'll only be able to stay out for maybe a couple more laps before he will have to come in, or he'll run out of time in the pit stop window. Now, the way the pit window works is that you must have commenced your stop when the pit window is open. So, provided you're in the pits doing your pit stop when the pit window closes, that's okay, just as long as you have started your stop, if that makes sense.
So that doesn't include the transit time?
Correct.
Ooh,
so if you're already in the pits doing your pit stop when the pit window closes, that's okay. It's only if you haven't come into the pits and the pit window closes that you get in trouble.
And what's the penalty for not taking your stop?
Too scary to comprehend, I think.
Ooh, okay.
I think they actually take laps away from you.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
They would.
So Jake Camilleri comes in as well. So cars that he gets to pit. Nick Kelly gets to pit. John Goodacre gets to pit. Hadrian Rowell gets to pit. Everybody else has stopped. I'm going to be interested to see when Jake Camilleri comes out here, because
and
I reckon
Nick's coming in on this lap.
So Nick Kelly now in. So we're not too far away from having a cleansed field and an accurate update of race order. So Jake Camilleri has actually made it back out onto the track as the first of the cars to have stopped. So right now, Jake Camilleri is the effective race leader. I told you that things were going to get shuffled around, Em.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So now what we're going to have is this situation where you're going to have all of the faster cars that had to do longer pit stops having to fight hard to catch up to and pass the slower cars And if it's anything like the previous round at Taylor Bend, we're going to have a grandstand finish where we'll have passing moves for the lead and for the win on the very last lap.
And that's what I love about GT1 is that it gets so interesting, especially with all these pit stops and the handicap pit stop. It gets so interesting for that last half of the race. Anything could happen. And it's Jake Camilleri, does he come in and win it? After having a terrible qualifying, has actually helped him out with his pit stop because it's just a pit and go, and then comes in and wins the race.
So John Goodacre in the pits and Hadrian Morale in the pits. So they were the final two cars that had to make visits to the pits. So very shortly we'll have a updated and corrected race order. We'll be able to give you very accurate margins between all the different cars. On screen at the moment, Matt Stupas in the number 3 KFC Audi. He's currently sitting 10th overall in the motor race as we have a look down at Nick Kelly in the industry clothing Audi R8 in the pits.
Will he get out before Stupas comes around that last corner and down the straight?
This is going to be pretty close. Now, on pit stop times, you would expect that Nick Kelly should come out ahead because he had a 5-second shorter pit stop time. And there we go. Nick Kelly gets released just ahead of the marked car.
Ooh.
Nick Kelly's going to have to accelerate up to speed because here comes Matt Stupas on the way down to turn number 1. It's going to be very close between the two Audis. Stupas comes around, but he will be behind Nick Kelly, and there will be a marked car separating those two Audis as well. That will be the number 93 car of Adrian Morale that actually runs a bit wide and easily surrenders that spot to Matt Stupas. Keep in mind as well that Matt Stupas' tyres will be a bit warmer than Nick Kelly's at the moment because Nick Kelly's just been stationary in the pits for quite a long time, so it will take Nick Kelly a few corners to get tyres on his Audi back up to their optimum operating temperature.
It's a bit interesting to see the battle now because Stupas will be charging hard to get back that lead and Nick will not be wanting him to pass him. So it'll be interesting to see if he can get close to him and make that pass.
So we do now have a corrected race order. All of the pit stops are complete. Jake Camilleri, your race leader, ahead of Vince Maresi in the Audi, Adam Hargraves, John Goodacre, Bailey Hall. Then we go back to John Morris in 6th, Tony Groves, Nick Kelly, Matt Stupas, Hadrian Morale. That is your top 10. This is the battle for the outright race lead. So Jake Camilleri in car number 97, just ahead of Vince Maresi in the Audi. Now you would expect that Maresi should be able to get past Camilleri fairly easily because that Audi is a far superior package, and he slides down the inside at turn 2. The Mark 1 cars are definitely not as quick as the GT3 cars. They don't have the aero, they don't quite have the straight line performance either. The Mark 2 cars, on the other hand, are a lot more evenly matched to the GT3 cars in terms of performance. So Vince Maresi then, the race leader, and he should just start pulling away now from Jake Camilleri. What will be interesting is to see how some of those other faster cars go. Here's John Morris, so he has just made the move through on Bailey Hall, so that's for 5th position. And the important thing here for John Morris is that he's in a pretty good position in the championship as well, coming into this weekend. Both he and Matt Stupas, in fact, very close together in points. Championship leader coming into this weekend, Keith Kasulki, not actually here this weekend due to some other commitments, unfortunately.
That's a shame. He's leading the championship, is he?
Correct. So a bit of a shame that he hasn't been able to make it this weekend. Rod Salmon, who is one of the men behind the GT1 Australia Series, also not here this weekend, unfortunately, also due to some other commitments. So 15 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the race. And there will be lots of battles and lots of positional shuffling to play out. Here comes Nick Kelly looking to the inside of young Bailey Hall at turn number 1. And once again, it's a fairly easily moved. The superior aero and mid-corner speed allows Nick Kelly to go fighting through on the inside at the first corner. Really good to see Nick Kelly here this weekend. You'll notice that all of the cars in the field have got industry clothing windscreen banners. He has jumped on board to help out the category with a bit of sponsorship. We know that Nick Kelly's very passionate racing drive. We've seen him compete over the years, not just in GT cars and production sports cars, but also in radicals. As Matt Stupas looks to make the move through on Bailey Hall as well. They'll go side by side up into turn number 5. Stupas around the outside, and he moves forward at one more spot.
Bailey almost made it too easy for Kelly, but made it a little bit, he fought a little bit more with Stupas. So I wonder if there's a little bit of help there or anything.
So I have to ask the question, Em, what position would you rather be in? Would you be in one of the slower cars that's got a shorter pit stop and then try and defend? Or would you rather be in one of the faster cars, you have to do a longer pit stop, but then you have to attack harder and try and pass cars?
I think I'd rather be in the faster car and attack harder. I think it would make you a better driver, and you just have more fun. That's the fun thing about coming from the back. Sometimes I don't mind if you're, you had a bad qualifying or there's a DNF, because then you get to fight from the back to the front, and you get to learn those pass maneuvers. You get to see if there's a door open. You get to push the door open yourself sometimes and open it a little bit wider and go for those maneuvers and dives. If you're just rolling around out there not doing anything, you're not developing yourself as a driver.
It's a good way of looking at it, but mind you, learning how to defend is a pretty valuable skill as well.
You just got to put the elbows out. You got to put the car where the car needs to be placed, and you can work out that pretty quickly. Just pretty much block a corner.
Drive down the inside, make the other car go the long way.
Exactly, that's it.
That's what Jake Camilleri is doing to Adam Hargraves at the moment as they head down into turn number 15. Camilleri moving to quite a defensive position on the racetrack. This is the battle for second position in the motor race. Jake Camilleri in the Mark 1 car versus Adam Hargraves in the Mark 2 car. You might be interested to know, Emily, just the differences between the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 cars. So the Mark 1 cars run the 5-litre Ford Coyote V8 engine, whereas the Mark 2 cars have got the slightly larger capacity and more powerful 5.2-litre version of the Ford Coyote engine. And just some other refinements with the Mark 2 car with the technology as well that's just made it a bit of a nicer and a bit of a faster package, as we see that John Morris is about to make a spot. And Adam Hargraves gets down the inside of Jake Camilleri at turn 2 to move up into position 2.
Is the Mark 2 and the Mark 1 car the same weight?
Good question. I think they are, but I'd have to double check that one.
And what about their brakes? Are they bigger on the Mark 2 or just the same?
I think they're the same.
So the only difference between a Mark 2 and a Mark 1 is the engine?
I'll need to get the specs straight. You're putting me on the spot here, Emily, with these technical questions.
I just need to know whether I jump in a Mark 2 or a Mark 1.
Well, the Mark 2 car's faster, so isn't that a fairly obvious choice?
Correct, it is. Mark 2 it is.
We'll find out the answers to your questions in time for race 2, which is a bit later on this afternoon, because they are valid questions. Matt Stupas gets up the inside of John Goodacre. That's up at turn number 6. The KFC Audi goes forward. And this is for position as well. So John Morris has been caught by Nick Kelly. And Nick Kelly will probably have to work a bit hard to get past here, because John Morris's car will be a bit more of a match in terms of performance. And Matt Stupas has caught up to Nick Kelly as well. So this is a genuine three-way battle for position between 3 GT3 cars.
This will be interesting to see what happens here. But also, Bradley Neal hasn't made it back out again. So he retired from the race during the first half of the stint before the pit stops commenced, and he hasn't made it back out. I wonder what's happened with his car.
Hopefully nothing too serious, and hopefully he can get back out for race 2 a bit later on. Nick Kelly's on the inside of John Morris. Flashes the headlights. Matt Stupas thinking about the opportunistic move as well. I'll tell you what, John Morris only just saw him at the last minute and opened up the steering. Otherwise, there would have been contacts down there between those two cars.
And see, that's what I love about it, because they're all battling and they're all knowing that they're wanting to take that position away from the other driver.
The visibility out of these GT cars can sometimes be a bit tricky as well. And it can often be not that easy to see if there's a car up alongside you. So it was good awareness there from John Morris just to know that not only was Nick Kelly up the inside, but Matt Stupas had his nose in there as well. Because if John Morris had turned in, he probably would have ended up being turned around. And these GT3 cars don't take too kindly to too much panel contact.
No, certainly not.
Not with all of those aerodynamic devices and dive planes and various other attachments or...
Everything that sounds super expensive.
Correct. Cosmetic features.
Yeah. So we've got 9 minutes and 4 seconds to go. I can't pronounce those names, Lockie. This is for you.
So Vince Moretti leads the race by 7.9 seconds. He's looking pretty good at this point because he's lapping very consistently and he's lapping a bit more quickly than the cars immediately behind him. Adam Hargrave second. Jake Camilleri still holding on to third position. And Jake Camilleri, while he's not as fast as Nick Kelly or Matt Stupas, he does have 11.4 seconds in hand over Kelly and Stupas at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see here, actually, if Nick Kelly and Matt Stupas can catch up to Jake Camilleri for that final top 3 position before we get to the end of this race.
Do you reckon he will be able to with 8 minutes and 18 seconds to go?
I think it'll be close.
Yeah, it might be a race to the finish line.
I'm just looking at their lap times at the moment. So Nick Kelly is about, in terms of outright lap speed, about 2.5 seconds quicker a lap than Jake Camilleri. We're probably going to get, what, 4 more laps?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be able to do it.
I think it'll be close.
I don't think it will be that close. We'll have a bet.
What's the bet?
All my bets are usually involve Beyonce and listening to Beyonce on a drive home from a racetrack.
Brad Neal. So just noticed below us here in the pits that Brad Neal's Mark car's been fired up again and it's on its way back down to the Mark Cars Australia pit bay. On the end of pit lane, they'll get to work on that car and hopefully get it out in time for race number 2. On screen at the moment, there he is, Jake Camilleri. So that's the driver that we were talking about. And stay with that camera shot, that'll give you the gap. Nick Kelly was actually a lot quicker. He was 4 seconds quicker than Jake Camilleri on the last lap. You're still keen on that bet, Em?
You know what? Yeah, I'm going to stick to my word.
He'll have to get his elbows out, just like you said, Jake Camilleri, if he wants to hold on to that top 3 position, because Nick Kelly is coming and the headlights are ablaze on the number 99 Industry Clothing Audi R8.
So I think here Camilleri will just be all eyes focused forward until Kelly can get right up under him and actually see him right in his rearview mirror. He's not going to want to be focusing anything on rearview mirrors, just looking eyes forward. Nick Kelly, he's going to be doing the same. Eyes forward, not looking at that rearview mirror, because he wants to keep Matt Stupas at bay and he knows that third position is forward, not behind. But then Matt Stupas will be looking and going, okay, I could get 4th and then maybe I could get 3rd if I keep on this.
One of the things that you've always said, Emily, is that sometimes it can be easy to punch out fast lap times when you've got a target to chase as well.
Correct. That's it. And I love chasing a target. I don't think I'd do well in time attack or anything like that because there's no physical target in front of me. So right here, each one of these drivers have a target to chase and they will be chasing them down extremely hard, trying to get into that 3rd position for 5 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
So a minute 36.9 for Jake Camilleri that time through. A minute 33.4 for Nick Kelly. The margin down to 3.8 seconds.
Ooh.
I think Kelly is going to get there. And the problem for Camilleri is that you might be able to defend against a car that's half a second or a second quicker than you, but when the other car that you're trying to hold at bay has a pace advantage of 3 seconds, pretty difficult to try and stop them getting past.
Certainly, you might be able to stop them for 2 corners. The 3rd corner is going to be really tough, and especially coming onto that straight. He's not going to be able to defend that. But I think Matt Stupas has kind of fallen away off of the back of Kelly.
Yeah, it's interesting because after the compulsory pit stops, Matt Stupas was actually a bit quicker than Nick Kelly, and he closed the gap, and he was putting some pressure on Nick Kelly, but in the last few laps he's just fallen away a bit, Matt Stupas, so whether that's maybe used up the tyres a bit too hard or...
Yeah, that gap looks like it just keeps getting longer and longer. And that gap between Kelly and Camilleri, yeah, that bet. Can we change that to Stupas and Kelly now? Because I do think that it's going to happen.
Here he comes, Nick Kelly. Oh no, we've got a spin for Jeff Taunton at turn number 2. That'll be a yellow flag zone down there at the moment. A fair bit of dust there with that car off the racing line. Jeff Taunton will get going again, thankfully. And we'll look to the back of the camera shot up at turn number 1 because Jake Camilleri and Nick Kelly should be coming around. Here they come. And Nick Kelly up the inside. Jake Camilleri squeezes him across to the inside, but in the end he can't offer too much resistance. And Nick Kelly is through on into 3rd position.
Where did Nick Kelly start the race?
2nd, behind Matt Stupas.
Yeah. So I think that this kind of proves that maybe qualifying and the handicap, it is better to qualify rather than sandbagging.
Correct. And the other thing as well is keep in mind that the round points for the weekend will add up the points from qualifying and the 2 races. So Nick Kelly 2nd on the grid, 3rd in race 1. He'll have a pretty handy bundle of points so far for the weekend. And then the pit stop times for race 2 are determined based on the finishing positions for race 1.
Oh, wow. Okay, I like this. I like this structure. And it's definitely giving a lot of action for the last half of the race.
So here comes Vince Moretti. The margin between Vince Moretti and Adam Hargraves has actually been coming down. Adam Hargraves has been punching out some pretty good lap times in the Mark II car. He was 2/10 quicker than Vince Moretti that time around. The margin, which was over 10 seconds after the pit stops, has come down to 7.4. Adam Hargraves is certainly not going to catch up to Vince Moretti before we get to the end of this race, but still, it's been a pretty solid drive from Adam Hargraves, one of the best performances that we've seen from him in the Mark II car, as we see that Matt Stupas is the next man who's going to motor his way past Jake Camilleri. And once again, it happens down at turn number 2. That's been a pretty popular spot for passing in this GT1 Australia race.
It certainly has. It's because it's such a heavy braking corner. Anytime that you have heavy braking corners, it's a corner that you can make a pass.
You know, a lot of smoke coming out of Jeff Taunton's car as well. I don't think that car's going to go too much further. They might be best to pull that car off into the back of the pits at turn number 4 and let the crew get to work on that and try and get it fixed up and back out for race number 2. So here comes Vince Moretti. A lot of the lap time's been 1:32, 1:33. We've got 1:35 remaining on the clock. So this will be starting the last lap this time around. And Vince Moretti got a race victory here in the GT1 Australia category last year as well. So Sydney Motorsport Park has been a pretty happy hunting ground. And we've got some dramas for Hadrian Morale in the number 93 Mark car. He's coming in for a late and obviously unscheduled pit stop. Which car is Mark Robertson working on this weekend?
I cannot remember. I'm not quite sure, but that's strange for one lap to go to have that car come into the pits. So I wonder what's happening with that. Good to see that they got Bradley Neal back out and doing some laps. I wonder what's happened with the green bonnetless. There it is, coming down the front straight. It is still out. The smoke subsided, and it's just simply going around doing some laps, collecting up, I guess, some points.
Correct. Yeah, Jeff Taunton will be keen to accumulate points because he is one of our regular contenders in the GT1 Australia category. So he needs to just get that car home, get it classified as a finisher, and get some championship points in the bag. But let's not take anything away from Vince Moretti in the Audi R8 LMS. As mentioned before, he got a race win in GT1 Australia in this corresponding round last year as well. So the Sydney Motorsport Park circuit has been a pretty happy hunting ground for Vince Moretti, and he is going to reign supreme in race number 1 for the GT1 Australia Series at Sydney Motorsport Park this weekend. No, we've actually been told there's 1 lap to go, so we won't call it too prematurely. So this will now be to start the final lap. So they have decided to run the race for an extra lap. Actually, that does make sense because it is 48 minutes plus 1 lap, so this will be the plus 1 lap. And his margin back to Adam Hargraves, 7.2 seconds. Nick Kelly in 3rd position, 14.9 seconds behind Adam Hargraves, 2.9 seconds between Kelly and Stupas. Jake Camilleri still holding on in 5th position at the moment. The next man that we'll have to watch out for will be John Morris, but there is 6 seconds between Camilleri and Morris. So Camilleri should be able to keep Morris at bay heading into this final lap. If you had to choose one of these cars to race, Emily, do you have a favourite? Which one would you pick?
Ooh, good question. Can I pick all of them? Why do I have to pick one? The Audis, I mean, they just look brilliant. They
And the
look
V10
amazing.
engine sounds amazing as well.
It certainly does. But then the Mark II, I'd love to have a go at that. And of course, I mean, who doesn't love a Porsche?
There we go. You've pretty much just named most of the cars anyway. But
Certainly
here we go.
have.
The checkered flag is at the ready this time, and it is going to be Vince Marisi. GT1 Race 1 victory for the Audi R8 here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Adam Hargraves keeping him honest there at the end, kept reducing the margin over those final few laps, and in the end it was a 6.9 second separation between our 1st and 2nd place cars at the checkered flag. 3rd place is going to go to Nick Kelly. Him and Matt Stupas continuing the battle that they started off in qualifying yesterday. They finish in positions 3 and 4 respectively. And Jake Camilleri will hold on to round out the top 5 ahead of John Morris in the Porsche.
I'm keen for race 2, especially the battle between Kelly and Stupas, but then also seeing if Jake Camilleri can hold off these guys for the race as well.
Well, the thing that'll be interesting in race 2, Em, is that the roles between Nick Kelly and Matt Stupas will be reversed. This time it'll be Stupas that gets the shorter pit stop because of the fact that he finished behind Nick Kelly.
Interesting. But I wanted to see if Kelly gets a better start, if he can widen that gap, so then the time that they have difference in the pit stop won't matter because he's got too big of a gap. And I think that that's what happened in this race, is that because the gap was, he kept that distance to Stupas and kept it short, that's what ultimately gave Kelly the 3rd position.
3rd place finish. So confirmation of your results: Vince Mariti, your winner; Adam Hargraves, Nick Kelly, Matt Stupas, Jake Camilleri and John Morris rounding out the top 6. Then it was John Goodacre in 7th, back to Bailey Hall, who comes home 8th position in his category debut. Tony Groves in 9th, Lachlan Hardberg completing the finishes in 10th position. I'm just waiting to say, yes, Jeff Taunton will get classified as a finisher as well, so he will get classified in position 11. Hadrian Morale and Brad Neal both retirements. Jason Busk not making it to the start.
Do they have a minimum weight for their cars?
There will be a minimum weight, yes.
Well, I just wondered now without that bonnet, maybe you come underweight.
That's a good point.
I'm sure that they'll understand why.
So the field make their way back into the pits. Great to have your company on Glenline TV for round number 4 of the Australian Motor Racing Series. We've got some of Australia's quickest race cars coming out very shortly for race number 2 of the weekend for round number 4 of the Australian Formula 3 Championship. Can John Magro continue his winning run and get close to the all-time record for consecutive race wins in Formula 3? Find out the answer to that question very shortly.
This season's been quite a testing season. It started off where we were at the Bathurst 6 hours of support, GT1. I was having a really good race. We were running fifth outright. during the race, and everything was looking to plan. And we were coming across the top at Skyline, and yeah, we were lapping a car. I was behind one of the Audis, Rod Salmon. Lapping a car, got caught behind him. Rod went away. We're going down into the pits. Everyone probably saw it on TV. It was one of those weird, wild sort of. So as we both went to come in the pits, I thought he was staying out, but he had a last-minute dive across me and sort of clipped me in a way that gave me a weird barrel roll, like a bit of a Dukes of Hazzard sort of thing. And yeah, so I experienced the rollover that most people don't really want to experience. So, well, I was quite fortunate. I jumped out of the car when I rolled it, and I was actually in the 6 hour in one of the production cars. So I jumped into one of those cars, and I ended up winning the 6 hour in class, and we finished 11th outright. So straight away that snapped it out of my system that I didn't have that daunting thinking, oh, yeah. So it sort of didn't even sort of faze me after I was a couple of laps into the next run. After that round, it wasn't so good. Then we went to Tailem Bend, and yeah, the weekend didn't go so good. I think we had a bit of an issue with the car a little bit, just handling wise, and I got caught in a little bit of a half spin, got tapped and turned around, so I sort of was chasing from the back for the rest of the day. But anyway, I think I still run second in the Mark Car Championship, and so yeah, we're still there, but it's been not as good as last year. Ran with Mark Cars for nearly 6-7 years now, and we've now got the Mark II with the Mustang, which I was fortunate to run last year. And I'd previous to that done a little bit with GT3, so it's amazing how close the Mark II feels compared to a GT3 car. Just with the Mark Cars have done an absolute brilliant job with the way they've designed the aero, with a little bit of that still raw feel of like a real little, sort of like a supercar to drive. Yeah, so brilliant. It's probably one of my favourite cars is the Mark II, the Mustang. And last year we ran the first 2 rounds of the championship in it. That's probably what set me up for the championship against a lot of the GT3 cars. And yeah, we sort of blitzed it. I think I'm probably a little bit too far behind outright. Yeah, last year having such a great season and winning it overall, that was the plan again this year. But look, I think the plan now is just to try and be the #1 Mark car. Yeah, but I think outright's not really there anymore.
Yeah, so we've the first record we got this year was at round 1 at Sydney Motorsport Park, and yeah, it's an outright lap record. We had good conditions, and we made a few little changes to the car, and the car was so dialed. It was awesome holding on for those, pushing for those laps in the race. I still had to be careful because it's still a race, and I was in the lead of a race, so you don't want to throw it off the track. Same with the bend, we had good weather for lap records, and managed to break the lap record in race 1, and then race 2 I dropped that record again, and race 3 we dropped it again. So yeah, it's been a really good run so far. Race 1 this afternoon, it's probably going to be a bit too warm. Nice sunny days here, which we got nice weather, but unfortunately it's not the best thing for lap records. So hopefully maybe tomorrow morning we'll get a little bit of cloud cover, drop the track temperature a bit, and it'll just help us get a bit more grip. With the track temp at the moment, it's a little too high, and it just feels greasy. So it's pretty easy to drop off a second a lap just with the track temperature. So there's another record which Ben Klukas set back in, I think it was 2006, and that was I believe it was 12 race wins in a row. So if I can win every race this weekend, will tie that record. And yeah, it'd be great to get that one, and but you just got to take it race at a time, and get a good start, optimise that. The team have done an awesome job with the car. We worked on our qualifying setup yesterday in practice, and I did think we'd have a little more grip today. Well, I was hoping for a little more grip today. So our car setup wasn't 100%, but it was good enough to get us on pole, and couldn't be happier.
Welcome back, everybody. You are watching round number 4 of the Australian Motor Racing Series live right around the world on Blendline TV. Emily Duggan and Lockie Mansell in the commentary box as we get set for race number 2 of the weekend for the 4th round of the Australian Formula 3 Championship. The big question, can anyone beat John Magro? Or can John Magro keep winning and perhaps score himself the place in the Australian Formula 3 Championship history books? Yesterday afternoon, he scored the race victory, his 10th in succession. The record for the most race wins in a row is 12. It's been held by Ben Klukas since 2006. So John Magro has a chance of equaling that record this weekend. He took a comprehensive race win yesterday, ended up half a minute clear of the second place driver, which was Josh Buchan. And then the winner of the national class was Garrett Ruff. They will go from 3rd position on the grid today ahead of Roman Krumans. Riley Brook out of 5th position. He was really unlucky yesterday. Had to jump on the brakes to take evasive action when Ryan Astley spun in front of him at turn number 15. And then rounding out our finishers yesterday, we had Shane Wilson and Ross McAlpine. Andrew Roberts was a non-finisher. His car ground to the halt a couple of laps from home. One of the other interesting things to watch will be lap times. We saw that John Magro got down to a 1 minute 23.3 in qualifying yesterday. Race number 1, the fastest lap was 1 minute 24.2, which was also set unsurprisingly by John Magro. The lap record for Formula 3 cars here at Sydney Motorsport Park, 1 minute 22.6, which has been held by Nick Foster since 2013. So the times are actually a bit slower this weekend than what we have seen from F3 cars in the past. We saw that John Magro got the outright circuit record. We've got some problems again for Andrew Roberts. He's not had a lot of luck this weekend, and more mechanical problems for that car on the warm-up lap. It's pulled off the circuit at turn number 2. The good news is that he's managed to get it stopped in a fairly safe position, and hopefully we can go racing without needing to have a delayed start to get rid of that car.
The warm-up lap seems to be more exciting than some of the first couple of laps of racing, it seems lucky here.
Well, we saw a spin, didn't we, in the GT1 Australia race on the warm-up lap. We saw an aborted start in the Mazda RX8 Cup, and now we've got some dramas in Formula 3 on the warm-up lap as well. So shame for Andrew Roberts, but he's out of the car and out of the race. Just getting back to the point that I make about outright circuit records, and a lot of the tracks that we go to, the Formula 3 cars do hold the outright records because they're the fastest cars that have raced on that circuit. Not the case here at Sydney Motorsport Park though, because the outright record here was set by an A1 GP car by current Formula 1 driver Nico Hülkenberg back in 2007.
Wow, 2007. That's such a long time ago. I would have thought that
Did you ever watch A1 GP, or was that a bit before your time?
it was a bit before my time.
So basically the way that it works was a concept of having the countries competing against each other rather than individual drivers. So each country had a team, and they chose the drivers to represent that team. And for Team Australia, we had Ryan Briscoe, Will Power was one of the drivers,
What
Will
cars were
Davison
these?
as well. They were all Lola open wheelers, so they were all open wheel race cars, but they ran control chassis and control engines.
And what time did they set in 2006?
1 minute 19.1.
Oof.
So
That's
fast.
a quick time, very quick time. I wonder if he'll be able to beat the F3 lap record today. I think it's a bit too much of a hot track. There's a lot of UV and there's not much cloud cover, so I don't know that he'll get that job done today.
I think you might be right in regards to that, but he does have the chance of getting another record today as we get set for a race start. Lights out and away we go. A poor start from Roman Krumans. The national class competitor stalls the number of 6 car on the grid, manages to get it going again, thankfully, without getting collected behind from anybody else. Great start from Garrett Ruff as well in the other national class car, and it's a yellow flag zone down at turn 2 because of that stops car of Andrew Roberts, so there'll be no passing down there, or there shouldn't be anyway, but saying that Ryan Astley and Riley Brook running side by side. Brook squeezing ahead of Astley as they run up through turn number 3, but not a good start for Roman Krumans, who came into this weekend only 5 points behind Garrett Ruff in the lead for the national class, but that margin was extended yesterday when he got the race win. He's leading so far today. So, you're probably pretty green when it comes to open wheel racing. We do have 2 classes in the Australian Formula 3 Championship. So we have the outright or the Gold Star class, which is for the 2008 and later model cars. There's also the national class for cars 2007 and earlier. And there's separate point scores for both of those different classes.
I think the interesting thing will be turn 2. It's a great overtaking corner, and yet it's got a yellow flag on it. That will probably stay out there for the entire race, and means that that corner's off limits now.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. Either they'll leave it like that for the entire race, or they might leave it there for a couple of laps just to let everybody know that that car's there and then put it back to being a green flag. We've got Josh Buchan closing up behind Garrett Ruff. We've got Roman Krumans trying to get down the inside of Shane Wilson into turn 1. Not quite able to do so there. Good to see Shane Wilson back in action this weekend. He had a fairly nasty crash at the Morgan Park round. As we see that yellow flag's now been withdrawn for turn 2, so drivers will be able to overtake there. But yeah, Shane Wilson's car was damaged at Morgan Park, so good to see that car's been repaired and he's back this weekend. Josh Buchan putting the pressure on Garrett Ruff in battle for second position. I know that Josh Buchan's a driver who, up the
Gets
inside.
the move done.
At turn number 6, he's had experience in Formula Ford, but this season's been the first time that he's driven the car with so much downforce. He's adapted to it pretty well, and at some events he has been the closest challenger to John Magro, but there's been other weekends where Magro really has been in a class of his own. Good to see Riley Brook up there as well with Garrett Ruff. Qualified really well yesterday, Riley Brook, but as mentioned, got very unlucky on lap number 1 when he had to avoid that spinning car of Ryan Astley at turn 15.
I was talking with Josh earlier this morning, just kind of running over the cars because I am very green on these cars. I don't know much. Just the seating position and their legs. And actually, Josh was saying that he's lost about 6 to 8 kilos to be able to fit more comfortably in the car because his legs, it's such a skinny place for where their legs go. He just wanted to lose that weight, a little bit lighter, which is always good, but it just allows his legs to be a little bit more freer.
He's looking very lean and fit at the moment, Josh Buchan, that's for sure. And he's been very much enjoying this season with the Gilmore racing team, owned by Errol Gilmore, the father of Chris Gilmore, who is a former Australian Formula 3 champion. We just saw a passing manoeuvre down at turn 2 with Riley Brook getting ahead of Garrett Ruff. That was a change in outright position, but not a change in class position because both of those cars are in at different classes. Riley Brook running in the outright Gold Star class, Garrett Ruff running in the championship, the national class for the older model cars.
So as they come around Corporate Hill, it is absolutely flat through that corner. The downforce provides them so much grip that they don't need to lift, don't need to do anything, just turn her in and keep gassing it through. And also the same for turn 1 as well.
There wouldn't be many cars actually where you could get through turn 7, Corporate Hill, absolutely foot flat to the floor. Could you in the XL?
I could do it in the XL, and you know what? I do it in the 86 as well. I've got my car working absolutely perfect for me, thanks to Robbo, my engineer, and we've been able to set it up so that I can go flat through that corner. It's a little bit hairy. It took, I grew the balls a little bit to do it. He told me it was possible, and I said no. And then I thought, you know what? I'll prove him wrong and go flat, and unfortunately, he proved me wrong. But I was happy for that to happen.
But in these Formula 3 cars, particularly in turn 1, you are carrying so much speed and you've got all of that air pushing the car down onto the racetrack with all of the aerodynamic devices. These are seriously quick, thoroughbred machines. And that's why we've seen that over the years, so many drivers have come out of this category and gone on to achieve success in other categories where you do have a very high level of downforce. So Mitch Evans, who went on to become a race winner in GP2 overseas, he started his career in Australian Formula 3. Also, Harry Jones, who's currently leading the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge. He was the Australian Formula 3 champion last year.
Yeah, when I was speaking with Josh, we were talking about how it is to drive these cars. And there's so much feel to the car, but they are not forgiving at all. So in a Super 3 car, in a Toyota 86, as soon as something starts happening, you've got, in the 86, you've got fairly a large time to do something about it. In the Super 3 car, that's minimalised very much. But in these cars, there's no suspension travel or anything. It's just straight. As soon as the car loses it, it's losing it. So your reaction times need to be so crisp, and your feel of the car needs to be so crisp. And I think that that's a great category for a feeder category, and why so many people do those open wheelers and F3 cars and then move on to other things and are successful.
Couldn't have explained it better myself, Emily, because when you drive something like this that's so fast, everything is happening so quickly, you have to react so quickly, you have to feel what the car's doing and react instantly because it doesn't give you that forgiving feedback that you get in other cars. So when you jump out of this into something else like a supercar or a Porsche, everything's happening more slowly.
Correct.
So all of a sudden you've got more time to react. And that's why we've seen people like Harry Jones step into Porsches and be so competitive straight away.
That's it. And these cars are going super, super fast. So when I say that I can go flat through Corporate Hill, remember, in a Toyota 86, I'm going a hell of a lot slower than these cars are going flat through Corporate Hill as well.
So Roman Krugman's up behind Shane Wilson at the moment. That's the battle for positions 6 and 7 outright, and the battle for positions 3 and 4 in the national class. Garrett Ruff currently leads the national class ahead of Ryan Astley. In terms of lap times, John Magro has just come through with 1 minute 24.1. So it's how does that compare to the time that he did? It's actually a little bit quicker than the time that he achieved in race 1 yesterday, but it's still not anywhere near the lap record set by Nick Foster in 2013. It's just seems to be this weekend that whether it's the track conditions or just a few other variables, the track doesn't seem to quite be delivering the type of performance that we saw when Nick Foster did set that record back in 2013. So
What's the time he's trying to get down to?
in 22.6,
And what did he do?
24.1.
Oh yeah, there's just way too much UV on the track. It's way too hot. I think that that's playing the biggest part in it. You can have a look through the cameras and see that there's just sun shining on every single part of this racetrack.
The other thing as well is they do only get the single set of tyres for the weekend.
Oh, his tyres would be gone by now. If it was any race to be able to do it, it's going to be race 1.
Race 1. Although Winton was race 2 when he broke the record, but by race 3, the tyres do tend to get pretty second-hand. Although in saying that, at Taylor Bend, he broke the lap record in all 3 races.
He
So
got
he
faster
broke it
and
in race
faster.
1 and then broke his own record in race 2 and then went faster again in race 3. So that was pretty impressive.
Next year, are they going back to Taylor Bend in the calendar?
Not confirmed yet.
Oh, it'd be interesting to see if he goes back there and does it all again, because it sounds like that track just kept getting faster and faster. To do that on old tyres, that's pretty impressive.
He has just gone faster again as well. John Magro, 1 minute 24.0. Josh Buchan's just done his personal best time of the weekend as well with the 25.7. Riley Brooke, a best time for minute 27.0. Fastest of the national class cars is Garrett Ruff with a 1 minute 27.7. Other interesting thing, Roman Krumans, who has been battling pretty closely with Garrett Ruff in the national class for most of this season, wasn't all that quick early in yesterday's race, but as the race went on, his car got faster and faster, and he actually did his personal best lap of the race on the very last lap. But obviously, in today's race, stalling on the grid at the start and losing all of that time has taken away his opportunity. He still hasn't been able to get past Shane Wilson. And that's the battle we're watching on screen at the moment. Shane Wilson still keeping Roman Krumans at bay.
How do you think I'd go in one of these cars, Lockie?
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
Oh, be
I think you go pretty well. I think it'll take you some time to get used to the downforce and just how quickly everything happens. But I think test day or 2 and some laps, and I think you'd go all right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd give it to the end of the day for me to actually produce a time. The thing that I found a little bit unnerving, and I thought that was really strange for me because, you know, I love going fast and I love racing. I love everything about it. But just their seating position and not having so much room for their legs, their sits, they're almost, you know, almost on the floor.
You're almost lying down, actually.
Yeah,
with the
I'd
seating
probably
position.
fall asleep. I mean, well, that's one of my mental preparations for the start of any race is to really calm myself down. I close my eyes, start visualizing, and a few times I've actually dozed off a little bit. So I think if I was sitting in one of these, yeah, I probably wouldn't make the start because I would definitely fall asleep in that position.
I'll tell you what, Shane Wilson and Roman Krumans not going to be falling asleep at the moment because this battle's really heating up. Roman Krumans starting to get impatient. He's right on the gearbox of Shane Wilson as they negotiate their way out of turn number 6. A bit like the GT cars, the aero wash becomes a bit of a factor as well. So when you start following another car closely around the high-speed constant radius corners where you do have the aerodynamics working at their peak level, that does create a lot of turbulent air for the car behind.
It'd be interesting to see where exactly he's able to pass the car in front. With these cars, you cannot have any sort of rubbing. Rubbing is not racing in this category. Rubbing is crashing and a lot of damage, I think.
Correct. Rubbing is retiring.
I like that. All right, rubbing is retiring.
I reckon turn 2 is probably a good spot. It's been, as we've said, a pretty popular passing spot in several categories that we've seen so far this weekend. Probably the other spot where Roman Krumans might be able to think about it is at turn 6. If he can get a good run through the right and then the left-hander down here, turns 4 and 5 was pretty strong through here on the previous lap and get a good run up the hill into turn 6. He's not going to be close enough on this occasion. But if he can get himself to the inside of Shane Wilson, on the run up to turn 6. That might be a good spot to make a pass. I'm pretty impressed with the performance from Ryan Astley as well. It's his first season in circuit racing. Came out of doing some hill climbs and some club super sprint events in Queensland. Still only a teenager, Ryan Astley, and hasn't come through the go-karting or the traditional motorsport introductory routes, but he's adapted really well to the F3 car, and he's doing a good job at the moment to hold both Shane Wilson and Roman Krumans at bay, and keeping the margin fairly solid between himself and those other 2 cars behind. As well, it looks like Roman Krumans caught a bit of the curb there. He did. Roman Krumans has given away a lot of time. In fact, has he gone off the road altogether, I think, Roman Krumans? Yes, he was very slow. I just saw at the back of that last camera shot that Roman Krumans had run wide over the concrete extension there at the final corner. And it really cost him a huge amount of exit speed coming out of turn number 18. And that basically relieves the pressure completely now from Shane Wilson.
That was looking like it was going to be a really good battle too. So that's a shame for Krumman to drop off like that. But I'm sure he'll gather himself back up together and start looking forward and trying to replenish that gap.
What it does do, though, is it relieves the pressure from Shane Wilson, and rather than having to drive on his mirrors and concentrate on defending from Roman Krumans, he can now lock his vision onto the car ahead, which is Ryan Astley.
What's the gap between Ashley and Wilson now?
1.5 seconds.
Oh, in 2 laps, do you reckon he can get him?
He definitely has a chance. Best lap for each of them so far. Ryan Astley's actually been a bit quicker. He punched out a 1:28.4 on lap 7. Best lap for Shane Wilson, 1:28.5, which was set on lap number 9. We are now on the second to last lap of the race. It's John Magro who has an 11.9 second lead over Josh Buchan. Good to see that Buchan's been able to stay within range of John Magro today. He's definitely been a lot closer than he was yesterday, where we saw that in the end it was a huge margin. It was 39 seconds at the checkered flag between Magro and Buchan. Buchan's at least been able to stay a bit closer to John Magro today. And I think that'll just come down to confidence, the fact that Buchan now is getting a bit more of an understanding of how to get the best performance out of the F3 car here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Well, you said that this was his first year in F3 for Josh?
Yep.
Yeah, and how many rounds have they done?
This is the 4th round.
Yeah, so he would now be getting more and more confident and knowing what he can do with the car and certainly around this racetrack as well.
All of the circuits on the calendar, this is probably one of the ones as well that Josh Buchan is more familiar with, because he's done lots of racing here in Formula Ford and a bit of driver training stuff as well. On screen at the moment, number 34 car of Riley Brook, but we turn our attention back to our runaway race leader, John Magro. 13.2 seconds his margin over Josh Buchan. The Artec Motorsport Dallara has looked superb once again in this race. And he is on target for yet another race victory, undefeated so far in terms of both pole positions and race wins in season 2019. Oh, and we've got a slowing Garrett Ruff. That's just noticed on the start-finish straight coming past our commentary position. That is our national class points leader. That car is crawling very, very slowly down the main straight. We'll come back to that in a minute because we want to ride John Magro home. But drama on the final lap of the race for Garrett Ruff. Not only our national class race leader, but our national class championship leader as well. But John Magro gets ever closer to a place in the Formula 3 record books. It is 11 race victories in a row for the Cairns Mango Farmer. Another exemplary performance for the Artec Motorsport Dallara. And he's going to pick up another sizable race victory in race number 2.
One more race win and he's equalled the records. How many more races in the season to go?
So this is round number 4, so there's still 2 rounds to go after this one. So there'll be another 6 races. Yep.
Do you reckon he can make it a clean sweep for the rest of the 6?
He's got every chance of doing it.
Wow, imagine that. That's a record.
So John Magro Josh Buchan comes home in second. Riley Brook finishes up in third position, and the win in the national class as a result of that retirement for Garrett Ruff, 1 lap from home. Congratulations, it's going to be Ryan Astley who comes through to take the race victory in the national class. Very well done to him, getting home just ahead of Shane Wilson. And then we go back to Roman Krumans. It's been interesting to see what it does with the championship as well for the national class. Roman Krumans was looking like he was down and out, but he will close the margin on Garrett Ruff as a result of scoring the points for the third place race finish in the national class. So Garrett Ruff for retirement. Ross McAlpine comes through as the last classified finisher in position 7, and Andrew Roberts not making it to the start of the race. Unfortunately, his car expiring on the opening lap. And so that was Formula 3, race number 2 of the weekend. They've got race number 3 coming up at 3:15 this afternoon. Time for a break here in commentary. TA2 Muscle Car Series, race number 3 coming your way very shortly.
The TA2 Muscle Car Series at Sydney Motorsport Park saw reigning champ Ashley Jarvis in the 22 Camaro face a new set of challenges in the battle for the 2019 Performax Cup. Port Macquarie's George Miedeke was already putting pressure on regular race winner Aaron Seaton's number 88 Castrol Harris Racing Ford. And although Seaton had claimed 3 wins from 4 starts at the Sydney circuit, Miedeke signalled that his new Mustang was now on the race-winning pace. Round 2 of the TA2 Muscle Car Series at Morgan Park in Queensland saw a new star emerge. 16-year-old Nathan Hearn from Lismore in New South Wales claimed his first TA2 race win in the final, holding out series leader Aaron Seaton and George Miedeke to take victory in the Gulf Western Oil's Dodge Challenger. Port Macquarie's George Miedeke claimed his first TA2 round win at Tail and Bend Motorsport Park during round 3 of the TA2 Muscle Car Series. Nathan Hearn's Dodge had dominated 3 of the races till diff failure in the final race handed Miedeke's Mustang and series leader Aaron Seaton a clean run to the flag. Despite getting alongside on the final few corners, Seaton had to settle for second, while Miedeke claimed the winning trophy and closed the gap in the Performax Cup driver standings.
I want that ring, man. I think that ring is so cool. So, look, you know, the ring and the chance to go to the States, I mean, I'm going to Watkins Glen, baby. I really want it. So, look, it's going to be a hard fight. You know, as I said, Aaron's really strong at the moment. And, you know, he just improved throughout the weekend. By that last race, he was faster than me. And you know, I'm just enjoying it, mate. It's just great. The racing's awesome.
This season's gone really well so far in the Castrol Harris Racing Mustang. I've really enjoyed the close racing that we've had with both George, Nathan and the whole category. Yeah, it's been really exciting. Obviously, each time I go out, I'm learning and developing as a driver, so that's been very helpful, and having the pressure there, and it's been really good. So I'm looking forward to the last 2 rounds here in Sydney, and then obviously QR as well.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I came in probably not naive, but expecting to be a bit faster off the bat, and to see the fight that Aaron put up, right from the word go was cool. Like it's been a real. I've had to dig deep this year and had to go back and look at my own driving. I spent a day up with Paul Morris and Robbo up at Norwell the other day, just working on myself, trying to get myself a bit faster, and that's what it's come down to. It's tough, but we are both on the edge, driving as fast as we can every lap, which is cool. So I couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah, it's quite close between me and George. We've kept it consistent throughout the year, so it's only 16 points between us in the championship, and I'm just really excited for these last 2 rounds. Obviously, it's going to be good, hard, close racing, and yeah, we've kept it clean all year, and hopefully we can do that the same in the last 2 rounds and just be consistent and do our best and see where we end up at the end of the series.
There's no quarter asked and no quarter given. I reckon is probably the way it's going to go. Look, I love racing with Aaron. He's a good driver. He's a real talent, bit of a gentleman. So we enjoy that side of it. But I tell you what, both of us are going to be putting pressure on each other. I think that's the name of the game, is to be as fast as you possibly can be and make the other guy nervous. And the best man will win, which is cool. So you just taking it one race at a time. We've got 8 races, so there's only 2 rounds, but there's 8 races across that, and the lead in the championship is less than half of a race. So there's a lot to play for, and I mean business. It's win it or bin it for me. So you've got to go and get that ring. That's what it's all about. And look, if I don't get it, the best man won. So we'll see.
Welcome back, everybody. You are watching round number 4 of the 2019 Australian Motor Racing Series right around the world on Blendline TV. Lockie Mansell in the commentary box, getting set for race number 3 of the TA2 Muscle Car Series, coming to you right around the world this weekend on Blendline. 10 laps the distance for race number 3 of the weekend. It's the 5th round of the TA2 Muscle Car Series. I'm joined in commentary for this one by Ian McAllister. The Mac of the news from yesterday, 2 more race wins for Aaron Seaton, and that has enabled him to increase his championship lead out to 24 points over George Madecki.
Yeah, which would pretty much say, Lockie, that he's got it fairly well wrapped up, hasn't he, just about?
I wouldn't say wrapped up,
So
because all it takes is one bad race.
Counting today, we've got 6 races to go, really.
True, 2 races today and then 4 in the final round up at Queensland Raceway.
Yeah. So there's a bit of controversy around the pits this morning. There was a suspected infraction of the shock rule, so there was a bit of panic going on there, but that proved to be correct. And we also had some noise about some fuel infractions, but that didn't happen either. That was all deemed to be okay. So, all in all, there was a bit of controversy, but things worked out quite well, and everyone's back on there. A couple of damaged cars from yesterday. It took a while to repair them. Rusty Wright spent a lot of time on his car getting it ready, and Andrew Madecki's car was rather scarred down one side with tyre marks. I think they had a bit of a coming together. Actually, we saw that, and I think that was doomed to be a racing incident. So that's all the controversy's been settled, and we're back to racing proper.
Let's have a look at the grid position. So the cars will roll around on their formational lap, and then they'll line up behind the safety car, then they'll take off for their warm-up lap, and then we'll have a double file rolling start. Aaron Seaton will start on pole position. It's Nathan Hearn, the 17-year-old from Lismore in northern New South Wales, who will line up out of grid position number 2. George Madecki and Hugh McAllister out of grid positions 3 and 4. And then we go back to Ashley Jarvis and Matt McKelvey in positions 5 and 6. The two Kubota racing entries are looking pretty strong, particularly in race 2 yesterday. Then it's Michael Coulter in 7th position. Recently became an uncle with his sister giving birth to a little boy last week. Russell Wright out of 8th position, followed by Andrew Medicking, and then Murray Kemp rounding out the top 10. Outside the top 10, we've got George Elliott in 11th position, Michael Cooling in 12th, back then to Peter Robinson in 13th, Christopher Formosa out of position 14, Darren Berry in 15th on the grid, Tim Tritton in 16th, and then it's Anthony Tenkate, Sean Richardson, Mark Crutcher and Cameron Sendall rounding out the top 20. Outside the top 20, Don Demetriadis in 21st position, Bill Robinson 22nd, back to Greg Willis and Paul Hadley, David Falvey and Craig Scatella rounding out the finishers. The non-finishers from yesterday, Tim Shaw and Jack Childs will start at the rear of the field. I want to talk about Mark Crutcher, Macca, because I know that you're heavily involved with his car. Bit of a smoky end to his opening race, but you managed to get the car fixed and back out for race number 2.
Yeah, it threw a bit of a curly one at us because we've been having trouble with an oil leak coming out of the extension housing in the gearbox. And we fixed it, but however there was still smoke, and just coincidentally there was a small leak in one of the high pressure water hoses, which was throwing water back onto the extractors, and of course we were getting steam and smoke. And Mark, at one stage he was on fire, it was about to firebomb, but unfortunately he didn't. They made quite a mess of it with the fire extinguishers. It was on fire and it wasn't, so we had to clean it all up. It was quite a bit of time, but it's actually running fine again now, and he's back in his rightful position and ready to attack.
It looked spectacular, and it was a pretty smoky exit, but fortunately it wasn't as bad as what it first looked, and Mark Crutcher will be fired up and looking to make up some more places, starting out of grid position 19. Aaron Seaton, though, he's been smooth and fast all weekend. Set the lap record in race number 1 yesterday morning, 1 minute 34.5. And in qualifying, he was really fast as well. He got down to 1 minute 33 dead in the qualifying session yesterday morning, which was the fastest lap time that we'd ever seen for a TA2 car here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Let's just take a couple of moments, Macca, to enjoy what a magnificent sight and sound this is. Big, thundering V8 TA2 muscle cars. Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, Dodge Challenger, record field of them here at Sydney Motorsport Park, with 30 of them ready to rumble into action.
One of my mates reckons it's so spectacular, it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, the sound of them all. No, I think he's right, it's just a magnificent sound as they come down here all formed up.
Check out the crowd that have flocked to the top of the pit complex to watch these magnificent machines in action. It's a category that's grown in popularity, it's a category that's grown in numbers, and it's turned into a crowd favourite category on the AMRS program. The magnificent field of TA2 cars ready to roar into action for 10 laps around Sydney Motorsport Park, and it's a couple of young chargers on the front row as we get the green flag, and they're already starting to shuffle out. Michael Coulter moves to the inside, try and make up a couple of spots. Seaton and Nathan Hurd side by side on the run down into turn number 1. It's Seaton who takes the lead. Medicki moves up immediately into 3rd position. Ashley Jarvis is under assault from the two Kubota cars who run a line astern. And we've got Russell Wright looking to the outside of Michael Coulter at turn number 2. If he can hang tough around there, it'll put him on the inside for the next corner at turn number 3. And I think he might just about make that move sting. Look at Nathan Hearn having to defend from George Medicki, who wasn't very happy with the performance of his Dickey Motor Group Mustang yesterday. And he's going to go round the outside of Nathan Hearn at turn number 5. What a move from George Medicki, gets the car up into 2nd position.
That's something you wouldn't often see, is it, Lockie? Make a move like that, they're incredible. Very, very good move.
Obviously,
very brave move.
Very confident with the car at the moment. Murray Kent down the inside of Christopher Formosa at turn number 6. The two cars will run side by side. Formosa hangs tough on the outside in the General Lee livery Dodge Challenger and manages to hold on to that position. Murray Kent, though, is going to come back at him on the outside under brakes into turn number 15, and he's going to try the outside move. Can he get the power to the ground? That's always the challenge in these TA2 cars. You can see the rear of them squirming around, and Formosa loses traction on the exit. Give that position to Murray Kent as they climb up the hill into the final 3 corners on the racetrack.
You can bear witness to the fact that you've got to be very careful putting the wheels over the yellow lines because they are very slippery. Notice just then the cars that went onto the yellow line got very taily very quickly.
You could see him struggling for traction there, Christopher Formosa, as he came across the line. Let's check the positions as they come through to complete this opening lap side by side into turn number 1. That's Russell Wright and Andrew Meedicky resuming their battle from yesterday. It was Wright on the outside. Meedicky getting squeezed up on the curb, and we've got George Elliott a big off at turn number 1. In the Dream Racing Australia car, manages to regain control and get back on, but he'll end up out in the boondocks at turn number 2, and he'll drop back multiple positions as a result of that.
There was a fair bit of steering work going on there, Lockie. He did well to get that back on the track and then unfortunately went off again. But anyway, he's back on track and into it.
Look at the Cabot teammates battling. Matt McKeldin trying to get the better of Hugh McAllister, but he needs to be a bit careful, Matt McKeldin, because Russell Wright is going to join in that contest and make it a three-way battle very quickly. Hugh McAllister having to defend a bit from McKeldin on the run-up to turn number 6. And I can see that you're getting a bit nervous here in the commentary box, Macca, because this is your team.
They can race as hard as they like, as long as they don't take each other out, Lockie, I'm pretty happy.
As long as they don't take each other out, and that's the key thing there. Russell Wright looking pretty racy at the moment in the number 55 car, and very experienced Andrew Meedicky right in that battle as well. Michael Coulter, next one through. Then we go back to Michael Cooley. Murray Kent's actually managed to get up ahead of Michael Cooley coming out of turn number 15. Oh, a bit of a sideways moment for Matt McKeldin. Gets up on that outside concrete extension through turn number 17. Will lose a bit of drive out of the corner, but it's actually slowed up Russell Wright, and he's going to have to defend from Andrew Meedicky as they come down the main straight. Meedicky pulls to the inside. You'll have a very tight line, though, when they get to turn 1, side by side into the fastest corner of the racetrack, and Meedicky gets his nose chopped off by Russell Wright. That slows Meedicky down to the apex and invites Michael Coulter and also Murray Kent into the contest. Kent up the inside of Coulter at turn 2. Coulter sees him coming at the last minute, opens the steering. Murray Kent squeezes on through.
I think Michael took his mind off what was happening there because he was concentrating on Andrew and Rusty and moved out a little wide and opened the door for Murray Kent to slip straight in there. It was very well done by Murray, and bad luck for Michael.
This has been really good racing of the highest order so far. It's been hard, it's been tough, but it's been fair and it's been clean as well. We haven't seen anybody getting turned around or turfed off the racetrack.
You're actually right, Lockie. No, it's been it's fast and furious and tough, but they're all hanging in there and not running into each other and racing very well.
We saw a telltale puff of smoke there up at turn 6, which is the sign that one of the cars has had a bit of a brake lock up. I think that might have been Murray Kent, or it could have been Andrew Meedicky. Look at how defensively Russell Wright's running on the run down into turn number 15. He had that car on the extreme inside of the racetrack. That narrowed up his line coming out of the corner. And you can just see the amount of ground that Russell Wright has lost to the two Kubota cars that are ahead of him, and he is still vulnerable to Andrew Meedicky.
Andrew's going to make a move on him very shortly, it looks like.
Yeah, Meedicky looking to try and get the good run out of the last corner.
Interesting talking to Ashley Jarvis this morning. He apparently had a steering problem with his rack yesterday and he's replaced it, and he's made easy work of getting around Huey McAllister, and he's going to have to work hard to catch back up. But they have an ongoing rivalry which is very healthy, and at the moment Ashley's jumped in front of Hugh up into 4th and relegated Huey back to 5th. And,
so last lap, Andrew Meedicky tried to go down the inside of Russell Wright. That didn't work. Oh, big lock up from Murray Kent. Almost gets into the back of Andrew Meedicky. Manages to get the car pulled up before there's contact, but he's lost that spot back to Michael Coulter. And it's on for second position here. So Nathan Herner's back ahead of George Meedicky. So there's been a change in position 2. That's all helping Aaron Seaton. He's once again established a pretty big lead over his pursuers, but we saw that Meedicky made that breathtaking move around the outside of Nathan Hearn at turn 5 on the first lap, but Hearn has reasserted himself. The Gulf Western Oils Dodge Challenger back up to second.
It was very well done. It's you know, these guys go out at hammer and tong all the time, and George won't give up. He's going to stay there and work him over hard. Nathan's up to it. He's placing the car well on the track and keeping George at bay. And hopefully while they're having a duel, the other Ashley can catch up and Hugh can catch up to give them a bit more of a challenge.
Fastest lap of the race so far held by Aaron Seaton. It was set on lap number 2, 1 minute 35.8, so it's slower than the times that they're doing yesterday. We do have warmer track conditions here at Sydney Motorsport Park today compared to what we had yesterday. So the track conditions probably not quite
the contributing factor to that is, Lockie, that we can only use 4 new tyres at this meeting and 2 previously marked one, because everyone's given their tyres a fair workout. So now the tyres, as I said yesterday, are starting to tell, so the cars are squirming around quite a lot.
Or in the case of David Falvey, coming off the track altogether. So David Falvey off the road, that was coming out of Corporate Hill. And here we see Murray Kent back down the inside of Michael Coulter. And Michael Coulter's going to potentially give up another spot to Michael Coolmeek here as well.
I think
Those two cars.
they actually made contact then, and Michael's car swerved severely to avoid a bigger collision.
That's been a really intense battle just at the tail end of the top 10. So we saw that Murray Kent lost the spot on the previous lap when he locked up, trying to avoid contacts with Andrew Mendicki. George Elliott is in the pits incidentally, so after that big off that he had at turn number 1, he's brought number 555 Dream Racing Australia Camaro back into pit lane.
The Rusty's done well to keep them at bay here, but they're all working pretty hard to catch up again. Michael Coulter's got trouble too with Michael Curley's right on his hammer, because Rusty's now got Murray Kent really trying to pass him big time. They've had a couple of close runs there all the way around through turns 15, 16. It's going to be very interesting now to see how Murray can go and if he can get past Rusty, because Rusty's tyres will be getting pretty hot by now, I reckon.
So Andrew Mendicki, who was behind Russell Wright before, has obviously managed to get past the number 55 Mustang. And Russell Wright is now finding himself holding off a freight train of cars. And actually, we've got an incident. That's Jack Childs.
Jack Childs has turned on. Is it 16? It looks like it's, corner 16 up the top here.
Yeah, I think you'll find that it might actually be down at turn number 2. Murray Kent trying to get down the inside of Russell Wright at turn 1. We've seen a few drivers try moves down there and they haven't quite been able to come off. And yeah, there is Jack Childs' car, and he's definitely in turn number 2.
Turn 3. Jack's left there. I doubt that'll bring a flag out. He seems to be out of the way. And Andrew Mendicki's starting to work on Matt McKeldin pretty badly too. So Matt will have his hands full for a while, I'd imagine too, with Andrew hot on his tail there.
So Andrew Mendicki, having got past Russell Wright a couple of laps ago, has been punching out some pretty fast lap times. He was 0.3 of a second quicker than Matt McKeldin on the previous lap. So this is becoming a battle for position 6 and 7.
Matt will have the elbows out. 4 laps to go. And Andrew's a wily old fox. He won't let him get away with it.
He's in his 70s, but still very, very capable of taking the fight up to drivers who are many years or many decades his junior. Such an experienced racer, Andrew Mendicki. Obviously, the height of his powers were late 80s and early 90s when he competed in the Bathurst 1000. Even drove with Peter Brock in 1991. A bit later on, he did some V8 supercar racing at Bathurst as well. Finished on the podium in the 1997 Bathurst 1000 with Mark Larkham.
I think you've got to take your hat off to him. And he's for his age, he's a very, very fit guy. And I reckon he must work really hard at keeping fit, because he looks in fine fettle. And as his durability on the track proves, he's always there to have a crack, and there's nothing, you can't get past him easily, and he'll work you over all the time.
This battle is still on. Russell Wright, Michael Coulter, Murray Kent. Big lock up from Michael Coulter on the dirty side of the road heading into turn number 2. He was right on the inside of the circuit, looking down the inside of Russell Wright, but as it turned out, probably too far to the inside where there's not as much grip. And he struggled to get that car pulled up. That'll be a pretty big flat spot on that front right-hand tyre now, you would think.
Turn 2 is easy to get up on the inside of them, but stopping the car and turning that's the problem, as Michael found out then, because you tend to overcook in there. Murray Kent's gone up the inside of Michael quite easily there.
Opportunistic move there from Murray Kent. He saw that Michael Coulter was a bit slow through turn number 4. There was a gap there at turn number 5, and Murray Kent fires on through. So those two swap positions once again. That's about the 4th time in the last 4 laps, I reckon, that those two cars have swapped places.
Those 4 guys have had a dig-dog battle, and I see now Hughes moved up on the back of car 22, and it'll be interesting to see if he can take it to him again. He got him yesterday, and looks like Hughes actually, I'd say, got running a bit faster time.
So we saw this a bit yesterday as well, where Ashley Jarvis' car was very strong at the start, but Hugh McAllister's car came on very strongly as the race progressed, and Hugh McAllister putting the pressure on Ashley Jarvis as they head down into turn 1. We've got 3 laps remaining, still plenty of time for passing manoeuvres to be made and for positions to chop and change. McAllister late move to the inside, not quite close enough on that occasion, but what he's trying to do there is appear in Ashley Jarvis' mirrors and spook the number 22 driver into making a mistake.
Yeah, Ashley closed the door fairly quickly then, but it's a good battle for the next 2 laps.
Turn number 4 might present an opportunity, a late lunge. Hugh McAllister.
Oh, nice move, but Ashley moved over on him there. I don't think that was quite fair, but anyway, I might be one-eyed.
That was almost contact between the 2 cars there. Hugh McAllister went for a late dive there at turn number 4. And once again, really tough, really hard racing, but it still hasn't been much in the way of panel contact between the 2 cars. So it's been fair and gentlemanly as well. McAllister definitely with the pace advantage. Jarvis defensive on the run down into turn number 15. What Hugh McAllister has to do here is try and plan where he can make a passing manoeuvre based on where his car is strong relative to Ashley Jarvis' car. Good news as well for Jack Childs, the car which spun down at turn 2, is that he has managed to get that car moving, and he's out of the way, and we've had a spin for the number 5 car of Matt McKeldin.
He's had a spin.
That was at turn 15. Now, he was obviously involved in a pretty hot contest with Andrew Meadicke at the time, so it'll be interesting to see if maybe there was contacts between the 2 cars or if McKeldin's just made a mistake and done it on his own.
Yeah, I'd say the hot tyres and tyres showing a bit of wear now. It's the cars aren't quite handling as good as they were initially.
Ashley Jarvis and Hugh McAllister round up the lapped car of David Falvey at turn 2. Good job there from David Falvey, stepping right off the racing line to make sure that the leaders have got clear passage. Turn our attention to another battle that's happening a bit further back. This is Darren Berry and Cameron Sendall and Mark Crutcher. They're fighting over positions 18, 19 and 20 in the motor race. Cameron Sendall sends it down the inside. Not able to get the job done there.
He was able to stop it before he stuck it into the door of Darren Berry. I think Mark was sitting back hoping to take the pickings that were available if they did come together.
Just ahead of that battle in the purple Dodge Challenger is Peter Robinson, the man responsible for importing these beautiful TA2 cars from over in the US.
And Robbo's had a really strong meeting. He's kept up there, up close to the top 10. He was 13th at the start of this race. He's driving very well, Pete. He's been very busy and hasn't been able to concentrate on his driving very much. I was talking to him the other day, and he thinks that, you know, as this now has developed fairly well, he might get a bit more time later on to keep up with his driving.
Mark Crutcher trying to go down the inside of Cameron Sendall at turn number 15. Nice space there, but that's one of the great things, isn't it, about this category? The fact that, because the cars are so close and so evenly matched, and you've got a varying degree of driving experience levels and abilities, pretty much wherever you are in the field, chances are you're going to have somebody to have a good race against. Absolutely,
yeah, it's a race full of races, really. Yeah, all the way down the field, you'll have little battle packs everywhere. Aaron's given everyone a clear set of heels and run off and left them all behind by, I'd say, 5 or 6 seconds now by the look of that.
Margin is officially 2.6 seconds actually between Seaton and
bad
Nathan
guess,
Hurd.
Bad guess.
So he's just managed the gap, hasn't he, at the front of the field, Aaron Seaton?
Yeah, maintained it, and when you can do that, it's a lot easier, and you can look after the car better. Once you establish a nice gap like that, it does.
Tim Shaw off the road down at turn 2. But here comes Aaron Seaton. It was a close situation in the points coming into this weekend, but Aaron Seaton is making a statement in terms of who is reigning supreme in the TA2 series for 2019. This is going to be race win at number 11 of the season for Aaron Seaton. And once again, he will extend his points lead. He'll grab another 5 points on George Maydicky to open up a 29-point advantage in the standings. Nathan Hearn comes home in second ahead of George Maydicky. Fourth position is going to go the way of Ashley Jarvis, who manages to hold out Hugh McAllister in the run to the flag. And then we'll go back to Andrew Maydicky, followed by Murray Kent, Michael Coulter, Michael Coolwig, and Sean Richardson getting up into the top 10. Good race, good hard racing.
It was a good hard race. Lots of hard racing all through the field. A few skirmishes, a few spins. See the difference in the times. 0.3 of a second between Jarvis and McAllister.
Just waiting on our final finishes to come through. So Christopher Formosa ended up 11th, just ahead of Russell Wright. Matt McKeldin back to 13th after that spin that we saw at turn 15. Tim Tritton in 14th, then Craig Vanderstel, Peter Robinson, Darren Berry in 17th, Cameron Sendall, Tim Shaw, and Mark Crutcher rounding out the top 20. Then it's Anthony Tenkate back to Craig Scatella, Bill Robinson, Paul Hanley in 24th, Don Demetriadis in 25th position, followed by Greg Willis, David Falvey and Jack Childs. George Elliott, the sole retirement after that big off-track excursion that we saw for him at turn 1. So that brings us to a close for the morning session here at the AMRS. But coming up next, we've got Lockie's lunch break. I'm going to head down to the AMRS desk and catch up with a few of our AMRS competitors from the various categories. So we'll grab a break here on the live stream and we'll be back with lunch here at the AMRS very shortly. Welcome back to round number 4 of the 2019 Australian Motor Racing Series here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Something a bit different this weekend. We've decided to do Lockie's Lunchtime Live, where I catch up with a few of the competitors that you've been seeing out on the track this weekend's AMRS round. We've got a few of our GT1 Australia drivers here, starting off with the reigning series champion Jake Camilleri. Jake, you've had a bit of bad luck this year, obviously starting off with the rollover at Bathurst and then a couple of little incidents in the previous round at the Bend. How's this weekend been for you so far?
Yeah, tough year, but this weekend seemed to be going all okay on Friday. When we got into qualifying, I had a little bit of a touch with my teammate. He didn't quite know I was there, so no, qualifying didn't go well. It sort of seemed like it was the same trend as the rest of the year's been, but no, we just had a really good race, started at the back, had an awesome start, and yeah, #1 mark car, and I think we finished 5th or something outright then, so just a little bit tough on the pace there with our tyres and that, but no, looking forward to the next race.
You're obviously in the Mark 1 car, which technically is not probably quite as fast as some of the outright GT3 or Mark 2 cars. With the handicap pit stop system, it actually put you in the race lead for a while. What's your mentality when you find yourself in a position where you're battling against some of those faster cars?
Yeah, well, I had the same situation here last year. We ended up second. I was able to hold them off, but just today they just seem to have a little bit more pace than me on tyres. So whether it's track condition or what, we're just having a look now. It's set up to see if we can just maybe be that little bit quicker, that we can possibly hold them off. But yeah, you can start to try and hold your line a little bit, but in the overall, all we do is start to hold each other up, and I start to get caught a little bit more. So I just got to be smart about it and let them sort of run their way, and yeah, just try and work my race and make sure that I'm like the #1 mark car and finish as high as I can outright.
So just finally, because I know that you're itching to get back in there because your next race is fairly soon, any special plans for race 2?
Yeah, we do. We've got a little bit of a setup change happening. So hopefully I just got a little bit speedier and yeah, just maintain. We've got a good start. I know the handicap's pretty strong for me this time, so I've just got to fight back at the end, and yeah, we should be good.
Good stuff. Thanks, Jake. We'll let Jake go. We'll bring in our next guest here on Lunchtime Live for the AMRS. It's a man who's making his first start in the GT1 Australia Series for the season, but it's a driver who's very familiar to a lot of viewers of New South Wales motorsport because he's done lots of racing in production sports cars and even some radical cup stuff as well. Great to have Nick Kelly here at the AMRS this weekend. How's the weekend going for you so far, Nick?
Oh, it's been fantastic. It's the first time out in the new car, and it's fast. I'm learning it. It's a nice and calm. It's a beautiful day. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
How does the new car compare to the previous generation one that you were in before?
The amount of usable aero at high speed is phenomenal. The braking is incredible. It's a little twitchy on the accelerator coming out of tight corners, but it's a very, very workable, pleasant to drive motor car.
You and Matt Stupas have been having a cracking battle this weekend. In qualifying, I think he pipped you by 0.2 of a second on the very last lap of the session yesterday, and then in the race you managed to get ahead of him and ultimately managed to beat him after the pit stops. How fun has it been racing against Matt this weekend?
Matt and I are friends, and we always enjoy racing together. Unfortunately, he had to cheat in the in the qualifying. No, he didn't. He had a fantastic time. And yeah, we're going to have fun all weekend because we enjoy racing it.
And just finally, your business Industry Clothing's actually come on board as a sponsor for GT1 Australia this weekend. So what made you decide to get involved in the category?
I really like this category, even though I haven't been able to drive in it so far this year. That's only been because of overseas obligations. I love GT1 because everybody gets a go. So everybody's having the best opportunity to get on the podium, and I think that's a really nice alternative.
Good stuff. We'll go well in race number 2 this afternoon.
Thanks, Lockie.
Cheers. And we'll bring in our final guest, which is another GT1 Australia front runner, qualified on pole position yesterday and chased Nick Kelly all the way to the checkered flag in race number 1 earlier on this morning. Missed out on getting past him at the end though. Matt Stupas, welcome to the live desk here on the AMRS Blendline TV coverage. How's your weekend been so far, Matt?
It's been good. I mean, initially on Friday we sort of rolled the car out. It's been on the money right from the word go. We sort of ran on old tyres. We were pumping out good times. So we're reasonably confident for when it came to qualifying, but then Q1, Nick did a good time. I thought, I'll forget it. I'm happy with P2 because he's in the new car. We went to the second qual and I just had traffic and it frustrated me. So I came in and the boy said, there's another 5 minutes to go and it looks like the track's pretty clear. So I thought, well, let's go. So we went out and did one lap banger and did a bloody good time. So I was wrapped. Absolutely thrilled with that. So it was good.
In race number 1, it seems like there were some stages where you and Nick were quite evenly matched. Then at the end, he just seemed to get away from you a little bit. Was there anything with the car that you weren't quite happy with, or what was the story?
For starters, the car will hold onto its tyres for longer than my car. So that's the lucky part of the guys running the sort of the 17 sort of spec cars, whereas mine's a sort of 14 spec. And I'll use my rear tyres a little more so. It's funny because I do watch him and I'm going, I wish I could do that, but I can't. We pulled away a little bit. I think it was only 2 or 3 seconds by the end, so it wasn't too far. No, it's okay. We've got 5 seconds this time on him. Last time he had 5 seconds on me. So hopefully I can just stay in front of him and make it a good race. I mean, it's going to be close.
Looking at the championship picture as well, with the points leader, Keith Kasauke, not actually here this weekend, you've actually worked your way into a pretty good position in the championship. So how much is that playing on your mind at the moment?
Oh, well, listen, at the end of the day, we've got to bring it home every race. So I can't risk it. On race 1, there was oil all round through turn 2 to 3. And Nick was sort of catching me there every time. I didn't worry about it because I knew he's not going to get me there. But I knew, listen, I've got to finish every race. I can't afford to get tangled up in sort of messy sort of situations. Then we go to Wakefield and we go to Winton. I'm comfortable with both those tracks, very comfortable there, both of them, so I'm confident in that regard. Bathurst I'd never been to before, or I had, but it's over 20 odd years ago. So to go on a kart, which I went in, I sort of, wasn't expecting a great weekend. Sadly, we got tangled up on the second last lap of the race 1, and that sort of spoilt that sort of weekend. But I sort of, the weekend, because we're allowed to drop one round, that was always going to be the round I dropped. So my series was meant to start at Queensland Raceway, started this weekend, and we've just got to be smart and clean.
Good stuff, Matt. So we've got race 2 coming up later on this afternoon. Just finally, what are your plans for that one?
Well, Johnny Morris is going to be hard to beat because he's got 25 seconds on me. We had 15 the last race. I'm not sure how much we beat him by, so it'll be close. So John will be up there, and he's my main championship contender, I think. Hopefully he can stay in front of Nick, come back on the track, hopefully second. But it'll be definitely second or third if all goes to plan. It's racing. We don't know.
Good stuff, Matt. We'll let you go there. All to play for in race number 2 for the GT1 Australia category, which is coming up fairly shortly. We'll let you go, Matt, because you need to go and get ready for the race. And we'll get ready to welcome in our next guest on Blendline TV, Lunchtime live here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Stephen McLean, do you want to step forward? And Stephen McLean from the Mazda RX8 Cup coming to have a bit of a chat to us about the category, because there was a bit of drama, unfortunately, in race number 3 for the RX8s this morning. We saw, in particular, a very nasty crash involving Terry Lewis at turn number 1. What's the latest news that you can give us from the paddock?
Mate, Terry's car's an absolute write-off. It's going to need a complete reshell. He went down into turn 1. Don't know if there was contact or not. I don't think there was. I think Terry just got loose and he overcorrected, came back across the track onto the inside concrete wall, so it's done a lot of damage to the front of it and got a lot of work to do in 2.5 weeks basically before our last round. He's running third in the championship at the moment, so he needs to get a car. So we're looking at options for him at the moment, trying to get a lease car together for him so that he can continue his run in the championship.
Another question that I want to ask you as well, we saw Justin Barnes had some mechanical problems. We suspected that he might have been losing some oil, which ended up a lot of it on the track at turn 2 and caused a few cars to go rotating off the track. Any further updates for us on Justin's car and what happened with that one?
Yeah, Justin came together with the back of Paul Mitchell down into turn 2. Paul got a little bit loose. Justin tapped him in the back, and these things, unfortunately, the oil coolers sit literally 10 millimetres inside the front bar. He's damaged his oil cooler, split it, and he continued because he didn't realise it until he'd lost oil pressure down at turn 4, so he left a nice trail of oil around the track. I think we had about 5 cars off the road in turn 2 on Justin's oil. He's pulling Terry Lewis's car apart at the moment to repair the oil cooler to put back on his car so he can get the car going for the last race this afternoon. So yeah, he will be on the grid. Yep.
That's good news. Any other news to come that we need to be aware of before race 4 the Savo?
No, not a real lot. It was a shame that the third race this morning was declared a non-race because we'd only completed 4 laps. We didn't get to the 75% rule. So grid positions stay the same for this afternoon. There were no points awarded, which probably helps Terry out a little bit, being third in the championship. It means I don't skip too far away from him. Mate, apart from that, business as usual. We'll get out there for the last race of the day and try and put on a show.
Looking forward to having you back in the commentary box with us for that one. Thanks very much, Stephen McLean. All of the news coming to us from the Mazda RX-8 Cup paddock. And coming here and representing TA2, we've got a couple of drivers actually. Let's welcome in first of all, Mark Crutcher. We've got an F3 driver as well that we'll get to very shortly too, but we'll start off with TA2. Always love catching up with this guy. I've actually raced against him in the Pulsars at Wakefield Park on one occasion a couple of years ago, but a bit of a difference between a front-wheel drive 4-cylinder Nissan Pulsar and a big thundering V8 TA2 car. But Mark, a bit of a smoky exit to race 1 yesterday morning. What happened in that one?
Yeah, we blew a coolant hose and basically had a steam fire, which we actually thought was a fire at the time, so we thought our year was over, to be honest. But thankfully it was just a loose clamp. All the coolant went over my tyres and slipped everywhere, and we caused a pretty big show. Unfortunately, look, we caused a stop to the race. That was the most disappointing thing about it. So I feel sorry for the other boys, but that was a mechanical.
Since then, though, how's the car been for you?
I think it might have fixed it, mate. I think it steamed it out. It actually went like a rocket after that. So it's handling really well. We've done some good work on the car with the balance. Yeah, and it's a pleasure to drive.
So is that a bit like when you get your carpet cleaned and you get all the steam to get all of the dirt and stuff out of it? The same thing works with race cars as well?
Yeah, I think exactly the same. The only thing we need to fix to the car is the driver. That's it.
You've been getting a bit of tuition from a couple of people though, so I've heard, so you seem to be steadily working your way forward. Is there anyone in the final race that you particularly want to finish ahead of?
Oh, there's no doubt that Cam Sendell and Pete Robinson, we've got a bottle of scotch on it, and so that's important. So, geez, I'd love to grab them too. That's always good motivation. Thanks very much, Crush, for letting you go. We'll welcome in, who's our next guest? Oh, we've got Lachlan O'Hara's dad here as well. So it's a bit of a fathers of sons in categories on Lunchtime Live here. So Lachlan O'Hara's actually had a really good weekend so far in the Mazda RX-8 Cup, and I think a lot of that, Scott, comes down to the fact that he's got ABS brakes this weekend, which is something that he's not had the luxury of having at some of the other rounds. How much of an improvement is he finding the car this weekend?
Oh, look, it's been a learning experience for him, even having ABS. As you said, first round in the whole series this year and last year that he's had ABS, and refining his brake marks and knowing how hard he can push into corners has been a learning experience. But he's driving us right on the edge. He realises that he's holding it up the front. He's had been consistently fourth for both races this week, and he would, if that wasn't a non-points race just then, that would have been another fourth. So he's pushing hard, and we're just still battling a little bit with setup at the moment, yeah.
I know that before he came into Mazda RX-8 Cup, he raced in the Formula V category. How much or how valuable has that been in terms of teaching Lachlan racecrafts? Because we know that with Formula Vs, they race in packs, they race very closely together, and there's lots of slipstreaming and chopping and changing of position, a bit like the RX-8 Cup.
Look, I think that's probably been one of the advantages for the fact of not having ABS, because obviously the Vs didn't have ABS in them either. He knew this, he knows this track quite well, but yeah, look, I think just racecraft, that close quarter racing, he sort of learned that from karts as well, where you can race close without having to bump into people. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop other people bumping into you, but he's certainly got a good sense of where people are on the track, and that comes from Vs. You don't want to interlock wheels, obviously, in Vs, or suddenly tip over. So he's quite conscious and quite courteous of other drivers, I think.
Good stuff. All right, well, we'll leave it there. Go well in race 4 later this afternoon. Scott, we've got actually a big queue of guests lining up to be part of our Lunchtime live program, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's welcome in Roman Krumans from the Australian Formula 3 Championship National Class, who's come down to have a bit of a chat. And Roman, we've seen... How are you going?
Good, mate.
It's been a really good battle all season in the national class between you and Garrett Ruff, and the points margins have chopped and changed, and it seems like he had a bit of a pace advantage over you this weekend, but then he got a DNF in the last race. So what happened there?
Look, I think a bit of what goes around comes around. Jarrett's really stepped up the mark. I admire him greatly. He does his own prep on the car, runs the car himself on the weekend, so he's amazing. And his pace is just improving all the time. Yeah, he's had a bit of an advantage this weekend on us, but we're getting there. Unfortunate for him to have an issue this race, but I've had a pretty bad 3 rounds, so it helps balance out on the points a bit. It's all good.
We saw in race number 1 that your car seemed to take a little while to come on. I think you did your best lap of the race on the very last lap. Was that down to car setup or driving technique or anything else?
A bit of both. We're getting a bit of push in the front in the car here. A lot of the guys are. So we're trying to work that out of the car, and in the meantime trying to work out how to drive around it a little. But also for me to settle into the groove. We didn't have the first 2 practice sessions yesterday. We had some car problems. So it's a bit of both, tuning me up and getting the car a bit tweaked in the aero department.
Just give us a bit of a sense of what it's like, because this would have to be a circuit that really suits a Formula 3 car. Lots of constant radius corners, lots of turns where the high downforce is really going to make the cars a lot of fun to drive. What's it like being out there behind the wheel?
Formula 3s are an unbelievable car to drive. It's such a privilege to drive them. They're phenomenal. Down here into turn 1, we don't lift. We tip in flat at about 240 kilometres an hour. You've really got to hang on to it because the steering gets really heavy, so you've got to be right on top of the car. Then you brake into turn 2 there, inside the 50-metre mark, and try and stop the car, rotate it, and get it powered up the hill. From there, you're flat. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, down over the hill. You're doing a brush brake and a turn in to really use the aero through turn 4. You're pushing down there, you have a lift, or you might have a half lift and a brush brake to keep the aero and the speed up on the car through turn 5. Then you're down up over the hill into that left-hander, you're braking late, you're trying to throw the car across the apex and punch it up toward Corporate Hill. And you short shift into 5th up there, and you try and run flat around Corporate Hill in 5th. And then you're sort of middle track, trying to take care of the little bit of bowl that's in the hairpin there. You're braking as late as you can inside the 50, second gear, push it around. And then you've got wonderful flow down the back through the 2-corner complex back onto the straight. You can carry a lot of speed through there in those cars.
It's getting one of our other races started on the AMRS program at the moment, so I'll just wait while those cars head into turn 1. There they go. So heading into race 3, it's a bit of a longer race this afternoon, 18 laps. How's your car been in terms of tyre conservation this weekend, and how do you think it's going to go over that longer distance race?
Yeah, look, the tyres look pretty good. They haven't been torn up. There's a little bit of hot graining on them, but it's not too bad. We're going to put a bit more front wing in the car to try and make it point and rotate a bit better, particularly in the higher speed stuff around Corporate Hill. We should be okay in that regard. Fitness-wise, I should be okay. Been training hard for it. A bit sore on the back of the neck, more from the braking, but the lateral G's and whatnot, we're okay.
That's good to hear. All right, thanks, Roman. Thanks for giving us an insight into what it's like to drive an F3 car around Sydney Motorsport Park. And we've got some TA2 drivers all lined up wanting to get into the action. Let's see if we can have time to get them all in. And let's start off with Aaron's seat, and I think it's only fair that the winner gets to go first. George Manicky protesting in the background. We'll get him in afterwards. But Aaron, ripple weekend for you so far. Race victories in all 3 races. Pole position yesterday with the fastest ever lap time for a TA2 car around the Sydney Motorsport Park circuit. What's making everything click for you this weekend?
It's definitely the crew behind me. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to do it without Chris Top and Dad helping in the background. Just the whole car setup and everything. It's running really well at the moment, and fingers crossed it can stay that way.
Heading into race number 4 this afternoon, what sort of condition are your tyres in? And I ask that question because I know that you only get 1 set for the weekend, and I know that this circuit can be pretty punishing on tyres.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, with the heat this weekend too, this track's quite hard on tyres, but we've been able to make sure we're trying to limit the wheel spin in each race, and hopefully our tyres are good for the last race, and we'll see how we go.
You came into the weekend with the 16-point championship lead. According to my number crunching, it's now 29 points after the 3 race wins that you've achieved. Is it too early to start thinking about the championship yet, or is that something that's very much in your mind at the moment?
Nah, definitely too early to talk about it. Obviously anything can happen, so at the moment I'm just taking it a race at a time and just trying to do my best in each race and go out there and learn and gain experience. So I'm really looking forward to the last race and also the last round at QR. It's pretty exciting time, and I'm really learning a lot, and yeah, I can't thank the team behind me enough for being here and yeah, being able to do what we're doing at the moment.
We've seen that you've raced in different types of cars. You've done a bit of stuff in a Super 3 car, you've done some driving in a Porsche Cup car as well, and some production car racing. How does the TA2 car compare to those other cars that you've raced, in particular the supercar?
Yeah, definitely. It's quite similar to a supercar. It has a little bit of aero and quite good tyre grip. It's because of the little bit different tyre, it's good for a couple of laps and then starts to drop off towards the end of the race, whereas a supercar will stay in for the whole race. But no, it's quite a similar driving style. Obviously, you got to look after the rear tyres, and it's a little bit heavier car. So no, I really enjoy it, and that's probably the most similar I can compare it to is to a supercar.
And plans for race number 4 this afternoon?
At the moment, just hopefully get a good start and just try and look after the car and build a little gap and yeah, see how we go.
Right, good stuff. Thanks, Aaron. We'll let you go. And we've got one last guest. He just can't help himself. Whenever there's a microphone around, he'll always find a way of coming in and having a chat on it. So it's not a bad thing, though, because he's a good spokesperson for the category. Matt McKeldin, good to see you, mate. Welcome to Lockie's Lunchtime Live here at the AMRS.
Lunchtime Live. Where's the food?
I know. We needed to get catering for this, didn't we?
Absolutely.
How's your weekend been so far?
Oh, we've been having a cracker. You know, we came into this year thinking if we can be in and around that top 10, we'll be doing well. And we've been up and around that top 6 this weekend. So it's been a really great weekend. Unfortunately, that last race didn't end as we'd like. Got turned around by Andrew Miedicke over at the hairpin there when we were battling pretty hard. So a bit disappointing, but you know what? You can't speak poorly of a driver like that. He's had a monstrous career and he's an unbelievable driver, particularly at his age. And from what I'm told, he locked up and accidentally hit me. So, you know, no malice, but disappointing to be turned around to 13th when we were in 5th, I think, or 6th.
You were having a good battle with your teammate Hugh McAllister there for a while as well, and there was almost one point where it looks like you were having a dive down the inside of him. How was that? How's the intra-team battle going?
Yeah, I got him off the start. I got him down at turn 2 on the start, and we are great mates. So we never ever want to touch each other. And if you've never seen the size of Ian McAllister, the team owner, you never want to touch him because Ian will basically bang our heads together. And he's about as scary as Helmut Marko, only 3 times the size of him. So, so we're very careful when we do it and very respectful when we do it, but it's a lot of fun.
For the 4th and final race this afternoon, I asked Aaron Seaton the same question. What's the tyre condition like for your car? This circuit's one that's punishing on tyres. You only get the one set for the weekend.
Yeah, it's rubbish. I feel like I'm driving on marshmallows at the moment. It's taking every bit of driver confidence and car control to keep the thing straight on the black stuff. So, mate, like, I don't know. In that range of that sort of 10, 12, 13th sort of range, there are some Banzai guys in there. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm looking forward to it because they're awesome things to drive. Even on shag tyres, they're great to drive.
Thanks for giving us a nice, honest answer to that question, because most other drivers would have gone, oh yeah, we've got some good conditioned tyres for the last race, and would have given us a scripted PR response. Mate, you've actually said it how it is.
If you've got good tyres by the end of race 4 at Eastern Creek, and you tell someone you got good tyres, you're a flat-out BS artist. They are absolutely shagged. So we'll see how we go. I mean, it's the same for everyone, and 4 is always exciting. So we'll jump on, we'll have a skid and see if we can make up a few spots.
Good stuff, Matt. Thanks for your company on Lockie's Lunchtime Live here at the AMRS.
I want a pie. Next time I want a pie when I do
We'll have to make sure we get that organised. So we might get Emily Duggan just to jump on in, because that just about wraps up our Lunchtime Live. We've still got 4 races to come on the live stream for you on Blendline TV this afternoon. TA2 will be back for their 4th and final race, as will Mazda RX-8 Cup, another 50-minute race for the GT1 Australia cars. and also the final race for the Formula 3 as well. Emily, you've been wandering the pits. Any gossip, any inside news that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I finally found out what happened with the Mark II of Jeff. I can't pronounce his... Jeff Taunton's car. So he actually spun. He dropped a wheel off just coming into turn 1. Dropped a wheel off, collected the grass, spun around at 250 k's an hour and was going backwards, and that's why the bonnet lifted off. There's 2 pins at the front of the car that hold the car down, the bonnet pins, and then the bonnet just kind of slips into a bit of carbon fibre where the windscreen is. So these cars aren't made to be going backwards, so the wind or the force of the going backwards at that speed has actually lifted up the bonnet and fallen off. So that's actually what happened, is that he spun.
There we go. Thank you for investigating that story for us. All right, I think that just wraps us up on Lockie's Lunchtime Live here at the AMRS. As mentioned, still got some great racing to come this afternoon. We'll grab a break here on the live stream, back with plenty more action here for round 4 of the AMRS at Sydney Motorsport Park very soon.
into turn one, so approach speed is probably the best part about 240. Slight brake tap, went into turn one, and then just started to feel the back end of the car step out a fraction. Had a couple of little grabs at it. Luckily, we didn't end up in a spin, but quickly radioed everybody and said, I think something's going wrong in the back end of the car. Wasn't quite sure at that point in time. But it didn't take too much longer, and all of this was hanging out the side in the guard, and I could see it in the mirror, and came in and got a tyre change, and away we went again.
Yeah, wow. Turn one, I wasn't expecting you to say it turn one. I thought maybe it would be at a slower corner. But turn one, that's pretty fast.
Trust me, I would have preferred it to be any other corner other than turn one. But look, it happens, and as I say, luckily we kept it on the bitumen. But it made for a very, very interesting corner. I'm looking forward to seeing the video footage.
Yeah, definitely.
See how much I was battling.
For sure. And how did you go in the practice apart from that?
We're struggling. We really are struggling for rear grip in the car. Corporate hill, everybody we're talking to is suffering from the same stuff, so the same issues pretty much. So we made some more pretty dramatic changes, I suppose you could say, to the car this time round. So we'll go out in qualifying, and fingers crossed we've got it right and we can come good. But I've struggled with it this weekend. Compared to last year, we're way off the pace.
So this is a endurance race, so sometimes qualifying doesn't play heavy on being the first. How is your strategy going into race one?
It depends on what happens at turn two, because last year after Jake Camilleri and I shared my car last year to help Jake in the championship, and he had a fantastic position 2 finish in the first race. Put us out of P2 obviously for the start of the second, and I copped a hit up the ribcage in turn 2, which bent a few things in the back of the car. Credit to the Mark Car guys and our guys at GJM. We got it going again and got back out there and salvaged some points. So, strategy-wise, you just have to play it. It's a great part of the sport that it involves everybody in it, in the team. It's not just a driver as such. So, we work well as a group, and we sort of, as drivers, we all sort of work together as well. Strategy-wise, it's just going to be a suck at the sea. I think that's pretty much every time we go out in an endurance race, that's what it's like. But in particular here today, as I say, the track conditions, we're hoping we've found the sweet spot.
And because of the category, there's that handicap. How is the handicap pit stops going to work out?
Obviously, the further back we qualify, the better we are as far as potentially being able to jump guys in pit stops. But again, we have to be on the pace during the race to be able to stay behind them, to be able to then jump them in a pit stop. I love the GT1 Australia concept as far as the handicapping system goes. I like the endurance racing. I prefer to be in the car longer rather than sprint races. As far as the handicapping goes, from what I can see, it works. It works well. So, we've had some good finishes in the last few rounds. So I think we're currently third in Mark cars at the moment. So looking forward to hopefully maintaining that position or slightly creeping further forward.
Well, good luck for qualifying and race one.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Really well done. Thank you for that.
The Australian Moto Series is essentially born from the Benella Auto Club's interest in being able to deliver some good, cost-effective motorsport. Essentially, the series is born from that, and when I say born, there's two, if not 3 categories which are born from the AMRS and who are massively successful today, and that being TA2. We've got a field of nearly 30 TA2s here today. We've got RX8s, which essentially is born through AMRS. It's a real sort of launching ground for these categories to be able to build and develop, and then put on some good, healthy grids. We're already working well into 2020. I've spent a lot of time, particularly in the last few weeks, putting together our plans for what next year brings. So 2020 will bring, again, all the normal sort of circuits. Obviously our home tracks, Winton and Wakefield will be on the calendar. We're at Morgan Park, we're at the Bend, we're at QR, Queensland Raceway, obviously back here at SMP. So it's going to be a travelling series of 6 or 7 rounds, and there'll be some categories which will commit to all the series, and then there'll be other categories which will be more probably local ones in each state that will come and essentially put on some of their local talent, be it state-based or club-based. From my perspective, we're only acting on the demand of the competitors. We're acting on what competitors are saying that they want to do. They don't want to be involved in race series where they get pushed from pillar to post, and if the rock stars of that particular race meeting have oil downs or crashes and things, then their race gets affected, the customer gets affected. Everyone's got their agreements as far as how much track time they're going to get. We absolutely do our best to deliver it. My goal is that we've got to keep growing the series, growing in a number of different areas, and particularly around the commercial side. Already this week I've done some immediate improvements on marketing. We're all about returning some value back to the competitors, so what can we do at events which attracts more competitors, categories as a whole, of course, but even competitors in those categories to be able to want to come along or to potentially travel interstate or whatever it may be. So development of the series into a more high calibre sort of professional series, but not at that high calibre professional cost. Probably one of the main things we need to just be conscious of is if there's categories out there that are looking somewhere where they just want to go to that next level, then like get in contact with us. Like, we're happy to have a discussion. We travel nationally. We're in every state. Please get in touch. Our website amrseries.com.au. Get in touch through the contact links that way, and happy to have a chat.
Welcome back, everybody. You are watching round number 4 of the 2019 Australian Motor Racing Series as we get ourselves set for the second of the 50-minute races for the GT1 Australia cars. Grid positions for this race based on the finishing order from race 1 earlier on. So it's Vince Moretti and Adam Hargraves on the front row. Nick Kelly and Matt Stupas resume their battle in the Audis. They're on the second row of the grid. Then it's Jake Camilleri and John Morris. John Goodacre ahead of Bailey Hallbacks and Tony Groves, Auckland Harburg. Jeff Taunton, and then our non-finishers from race number 1, Hadrian Morale and Brad Neal. Good to see those cars back out there. It looks like Jason Busk's car is out for this race as well, which is really good to see. So getting set for the double file rolling start, 50 minutes on the clock. Time starts now. Good start from Vince Moretti, but Nick Kelly looking down on the inside as they head into turn number 1, and he will make the move through up into second position. He gets the job done on Adam Hargraves. That's pretty critical for Nick Kelly because he's going to have a bit of a longer pit stop time compared to Matt Stupers, who he's been battling with most of the weekend. And Nick Kelly's had a much better run through some of that early traffic compared to Stupers, who was up behind the car of Jake Camilleri at the moment. Joined in commentary once again for this race by Emily Duggan, as we see Matt Stupers getting down the inside on Jake Camilleri through turn number 4. And Emily, you actually had a chance to catch up during the break with Jeff Taunton, who we saw have a bonnet issue in race number 1. Oh, and we'll come back to that point because we've had a spin for Tony Groves. And that's in the number 80 Mark 1 Mazda 3. And Tony Groves will rejoin at the back of the pack. And damage to one of the other marked cars as well. That is the number 93 entry of Hadrian Morale with broken steering. And he's going to struggle to get that car into a safe position with no steering control whatsoever. So,
what an action-packed first couple of laps, or first lap.
So I'm going to make an educated guess here, Emily, that there's probably been contact between those two marked cars.
I think so as well. Were they the same two that came together in qualifying?
No, because that was Jake Camilleri was one of the ones that got involved in the qualifying incident.
The marked cars just seem to be like magnets. They love each other.
Too much, as it turns out. So the Mark II car of Jeff Taunton, which lost its bonnet in race number 1, turned out that he actually had a spin which dislodged the bonnet, Em.
Yeah, correct. As he was coming into turn 1 just before it, he put a wheel on the grass, spun the car around at about 255 k's, and now these cars are designed to go forward. They're not designed to be in reverse or go backwards, especially at 255 k's an hour. So that bonnet actually, the wind got up underneath the bonnet and actually flew it off. And how did that wind actually get underneath that? Well, it's because the front two bonnet pins are the only pins that are really locking that bonnet into place. It then puts, it's then slotted kind of into where the windscreen is, into just, I think there's about 6 little slots of carbon fibre, and it just slits into there. And of course, if some wind gets under there, it's just going to fly it straight off. So that's actually what happened. I'm keen to see that in-car footage too, actually.
It'll be pretty spectacular to watch, that's for sure. And I'm sure we'll be seeing it on highlights reels in the weeks to come. Good job for Hadrian Morale. He has managed to get that marked car back to the pits. So we won't have any need for a code 40 intervention to retrieve that car, which is good. But Jeff Taunton has come charging up through the field. He's already up to 7th position after starting at the back of the grid, and there is Hadrian Morale in the pits. His day will be done.
The interesting thing about Jeff Taunton now is that because he finished that last race, I think about 13th or 11th. He finished 11th. Pit stop strategy.
Correct.
It completely changes because now he only has a stop-go penalty where the cars in front of him have to stop for a lot longer.
Exactly right. And in fact, if I had to tip someone to win this race, I'd say that Jeff Taunton's going to be in a pretty good position because we know that he's got reasonably good pace. His lap times were not that much slower than some of the fastest Audis at the front of the field. And his pit stop time is going to be significantly less. In fact, he only has to do a stop-go, so it's going to be over a minute less than he will be spending in pit lane compared to the cars that are at the front of the field. Good battle at the moment between the two Mark II cars, and Jeff Taunton putting some pressure on Adam Hargraves, who in turn has not yet been able to find a way past Jake Camilleri.
Now, when I was talking to Jeff, he also mentioned that he wanted to charge through that field. So you can see there that his eyes are firmly planted forward.
Now, here's a replay. This was from earlier on. This is from lap 1. And this might explain what happened. Oh, so Tony Groves has lost it all on his own by the looks of it. So I was wrong. There wasn't contact with Hadrian Morale. It's always dangerous to assume things in this commentary business, Emily.
It certainly is. But then I wonder why Morale's wheel looks like that, though. He's obviously come into contact
with someone,
with
you
something.
would think,
yeah.
Unless it's just broken on its own.
Well, we did have that coming down the front straight in qualifying. I believe that happened when qualifying 1 was red flagged. So I wonder what's actually happened there.
So Jake Camilleri doing a good job in holding out the two Mark II cars at the moment. Incidentally, the race leader is still Vince Marisi, ahead of Nick Kelly and Matt Stupas. And it's John Morris in 4th, and then the battle that we're watching on screen. So this is the contest for 5th position overall in the motor race. Jake Camilleri ahead of Adam Hargraves and Jeff Taunton.
Now, Jeff Hargraves, how long does he have to stop for? This will be interesting. Whether
So I'll give you the pit stop times for those 3 cars. So Jake Camilleri in car number 97 has to stop for 55 seconds. Adam Hargraves, who is behind the wheel of car number 20, he finished 2nd, so he's got a 75-second pit stop, so he's got a quite long stop. Jeff Taunton, as we know, only has to do a stop-go. So Jeff Taunton will be spending a considerably shorter amount of time in the pits compared to these cars, as we see Adam Hargraves ranging up alongside Jake Camilleri. Adrian Morale's car being pushed back into the garage. And there is your race engineer for the Toyota 86s and Kumo's Super 3 Series, Mark Robertson.
Hi, Robbo. Hope you're listening.
I don't think he will be. I think he'll be a bit busy, occupied down there with the damaged Mark car, unfortunately.
Correct. I think so too. I think he's better used there than listening to me on commentary. So this battle will actually be really interesting because even though that the car in front, car 20, has to stop for a lot longer, it's really holding up Taunton from getting the next cars, although he takes over and gets the job done. Oh, yes, makes it stick on the edge of turn 2.
So Jeff Taunton moves up a spot, so elevates that car up to position 6. Next target for him will be Jake Camilleri, who's doing a really good job of defending from these Mark II cars. Once again, let's not forget that the Mark II cars are faster and more powerful than the Mark I cars, so Jake Camilleri has done very well to keep them at bay for as long as he has.
Certainly. Well, I was talking to him before this race, and he said that last race he was trying to have the elbows out a little bit, but it just kept kind of bringing him back. I guess he was just kept looking in the rearview mirror. So he decided, no, I'm just going to look forward, and if they do catch up, they catch up, and I'll allow them to pass. And it looks like now he's changed tactics, and he is elbows out, which is great because this is what good racing is, and it's really giving Jeff Taunton a fight to get past him.
Where Jake Camilleri is going to be vulnerable, though, is when they get onto the main straight. The bigger 5.2 litre engine in the Mark II car will give Jeff Taunton a straight line speed advantage. You can see Jake Camilleri driving the wheels off it, using absolutely all of the road and all of the exit concrete extension coming out of turn number 18. Trying to get on the power as hard as early as he can. And he holds on again, Jake Camilleri, through turn number 1. This has been a great display of defensive driving.
I think he's got
Jeff
him near in
Taunton,
turn 2. He does try and defend, but it's not enough, and Taunton does take over that position and allows also car 20 to get in there as well. I think Jake just was batting a little bit too much and the pressure was too far on and just made a few little mistakes.
And that can be one of the traps carded if you're in a car that doesn't quite have the pace and you are defending from cars that are a bit faster than you are at any given point in the motor race. If one of them gets past you, it can open up the floodgates and you can very easily lose multiple positions.
Certainly, and well done to the driver of car 20 for being in the right place at the right time and taking, capitalising on Taunton's overtaking manoeuvre and going with him.
So on screen at the moment, a couple of the Mark I cars that have had a couple of dramas this weekend. Good to see Jason Bust back out there. Broken right rear control arm for that car in qualifying yesterday, which pitched it into the wall on the approach to turn 1. Caught up with Jason Busk last night, and he was actually a really lucky boy that happened on the out lap of qualifying, because if he'd been up to full speed going for a hot lap, that would have been a catastrophic crash at the fastest corner on the racetrack. And Brad Neal back out there as well. And you actually found out what went wrong with his car in race 1 as well during your pit lane investigations, Em.
Yeah, just completely lost the throttle. There was just no throttle in the car. It wasn't really doing anything.
That's what